Hi, good afternoon, guys. This is JC from AirJ Snaps.
This is Hero from Shoot with Hero, and welcome to Photography After Hours. Hello, JC.
Hello, guys.
Today we have a very special guest. He is basically one of the very few people that I am eyeing to handle multimedia subject from in our university. Syempre, right now I'm handling photography and film, and I would want him or I wanted him to give a lecture. Unfortunately, due to time constraints and all, hindi naging possible. So I thought that it would be a lot better to have him join us for that episode, di ba? Okay,
Yep.
so yeah, dead air.
Yes.
Okay, so without further ado, let's have our guest for today, Mr. Ronald James Baculo.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Mm.
Hello,
I'm a
sir.
fan of the podcast. Talaga, I love it. I love what you guys are doing here.
Thank you.
So RJ, what's up with you? Anong meron? At in the first place, bakit ka namin invite pala? Sorry.
Well, I guess it's I'm here to share about visual storytelling. I mean, that's really my passion. That's my thing right now as a visual storyteller. Bakit visual storyteller? Bakit hindi lang filmmaker or content creator? Kasi, I mean, apart from making short films, mga short documentaries, I'm also a comic book creator. Gumagawa din ako ng nagsusulat, nag-illustrate ng sarili kong comics, and I self-published them. So hindi to under like a company, hindi to nabibili sa like National Bookstore, but more in the mga comics convention like Comic Con, Comic It, and then nababasa din online. And so it's a very multimedia thing. You know, it's not just one thing. It's not just video. It's images. It's pictures. It's even kasama din dyan, photography. Of course, photography kasama din dyan. So it's all about telling stories or sharing stories using visuals. Kasi alam naman natin lahat. I mean, most of us, we learn better or we retain more pag nakikita natin. Like I really believe na, me narinig ko na me saying na uh, when you tell an audience your what is it? You're lecturing. When you show something to an audience or your student, for example, then that's teaching. But then when you let them experience the moment or experience something, then yun yung visual storytelling. Parang na-immerse sila doon. They didn't just learn something, they didn't just pick up something, pero na-experience nila. Parang, na-empathize nila yung character or na-feel nila yung situation or whatever it may be. Mas lalo na naging deeper yung experience because of that visual storytelling aspect. And so that's what I'm for talaga. How to tell the best stories through these visual mediums, be it comics, graphic novels, short films, documentaries, photography, even social media, animation, even all those things. Kasama din natin sa visual storytelling.
Actually, the word itself, storytelling, big deal na rin siya when it comes to education eh. Kasi previously, back when it was face-to-face, traditional teaching environment, it's just yun, yung content and then how you'll deliver it. Nowadays, it's more about the delivery. Kasi nga, 'di ba, dahil we're all, most of us at least are into online classes na ngayon. It's not just enough na yan, you know what you're talking about, you know what you're teaching. Ngayon kasi it's part yung storytelling, yung delivery, yung medium mo, it's as important as the content itself or as the lecture itself, eh, 'di ba? So in a way, yung mga faculty ko or mga instructors ko, college instructors ko, they are acting more like content creators now than as professors or college instructors ngayon, eh, which is both weird and at the same time amusing. Nakakatuwa rin. So
That's
yun.
true. Totoo nga. It's like fusing entertainment and education parang
Mm,
in one to really captivate an audience.
mm.
Very
Yan.
much
By the
needed.
way, keyword captivate. How do we exactly captivate our audiences? Ako, I just started my Instagram this year alone. And well, ano ba? Things are not going well. Ang tawag dito, medyo mabagal yung growth. Actually naman, I'm not up for the growth yung mga follower count. I'm not particular with that naman. Pero syempre, it would be nice then to see your follower count grow, di ba? Pero how does it really how do we really captivate our audience? In photography, syempre, I visual content, 'di ba? Para sa akin, medyo eye candy naman yung ginagawa natin. Again, photography siya eh. It's the essence itself is eye candy supposedly. Pero with film or in your case, kasi multifaceted ka eh. You have your print media and then you have your your video content creation. How how do you captivate your audience?
That's mahirap na ngayon talaga. I mean, yeah, honestly, like even like just examples like Instagram lang. And a lot of changes have happened sa Instagram lang. Kaya like very like was it last month lang ba? 2 months ago nag-announce yung CEO ng Instagram na hindi na sila magpo-focus
Yeah.
sa images.
Mm.
They will not focus on photography. Mag-focus na sila sa video. Like of course it's a move to laban like TikTok.
Yeah.
And bakit gano'n? Why does everyone want to emulate the TikTok story, the
Mm.
TikTok success story? Kasi yung I think the key to captivating stories is yun, yung authenticity. I think there was a time na matagal, like, we loved that glossy, polished look sa Instagram and the, finely tuned mga Lightroom, edited photos and perfectly posed mga influencers. But now parang nag-swing back yung pendulum. I think people want to see more raw, they want to see more personal, they want to see more authentic, I think. I always hear nga the success of Instagram is was it aesthetics over authentic. Sa TikTok naman is authenticity over aesthetics. So I think now we're going back to that being more real, being more authentic, being more personal. And the best way to be personal, of course, is magkwento. Mag-share ng story. And yeah, it doesn't have to be a TikTok video na just share ka ng chismis or whatever, but even in your photography or in your, like as an artist, as an artist that uses Instagram, I think now it's not more about showing the most perfect work, but i-showcase mo yung process. I-showcase mo yung paano ka nakarating doon sa work mo. And so there, again, storytelling again. You're showing like behind the scenes. You're showing a personal parang perspective of this field, this industry, and this kind of passion and this kind of work. So I think dun ngayon sa captivating, it's not so much the wow visuals anymore, but now it's the personal aspect, seeing the realness or the rawness sa tao, sa person, whoever sharing man naman. Yeah.
Sabagay, no? I think we can call it paradigm shift na rin, 'di ba? Like with
Mm.
JC dati puro parang glossy photos, 'di ba? Parang yung
Yeah.
commercial type photos na sobrang sharp, 'di ba? Pero ngayon andun yung malabas yung mga mas ideal na photos or contents para sa atin, 'di ba? Yung gritty, yung may character na photos. Again, yung sharpness level medyo took a backseat for the character or for the color, 'di ba? So I guess yeah, with any facet naman nagkakaroon talaga ng shift into a different one, whether going back old school or going a different route altogether, talaga may pababago. Okay? So, JC, do you have any question for RJ before he does his thing?
Um, wala pa naman. I think more of my questions or more of my curiosity will spark sa lecture. Kasi
Okay.
I like how this conversation is going kasi I struggled before with storytelling in different aspects eh. And what RJ said with regards to um yung social media ngayon na when it comes to aesthetics and then being raw or being authentic, maraming I just realized parang before we or most of the content creators kasi they showcase whatever medium they have through yung parang final form na. Yung parang, eto na, this is my painting, this is my photo. Ngayon kasi, a lot of people are, yung interest nila there, it peaked a lot with yung mga POV photography, behind the scenes, yung, this is what I do. This is what I love doing in daily life. So, part of that kasi is your thought process or your, ano bang tawag doon? Yung parang step-by-step process or how you think uh, or what you do with storytelling or how you drive it to your medium or to your passion. So yeah, most of my Q&A or most of my questions malamang will spark after nung lecture. So yeah.
I think kasama din doon, JC, yung parang like the popularity of mga unboxing videos, tutorial videos.
Exactly.
Kasama din doon, I think, that kind of aspect na, like, ako, like, I've learned so much from like Peter McKinnon videos. Yung parang gano'n na tutorial, pero may parang kwento and whatever. And, I mean, a lot now are copying that style, pero when he was new in like 2017, 2018, like, very wrong. Ang ganda ng you felt like you were behind the scenes then.
Exactly. Yun nga eh. Parang yung sa visual storytelling kasi or any storytelling for that matter, you have to immerse your audience na parang dyan sila. Like you're actually talking to your friend. Parang, oh, I got this, or this is how I made my photo, this is how I made my painting. What is the thought process? What is the whole thingamajig? Yun, yung kung ano man yung process before the final product or of any medium for that matter. So,
Nice.
yeah.
Oh yeah. Yes, again, I'll get into our lecture, I guess. It's more of an introduction to visual storytelling. And although my background right now is more in filmmaking, so it might lean more towards film and video, but it can also apply to like photography or illustration, sequential art, like comics and then. So it should apply there too. Yeah, let's go. Game. Before, I guess, again, a little introduction in Seguros of myself, my background, how I got to where I am. I never thought I could actually make films. Nung bata ako, you say things like that, like, oh, I want to be an astronaut. Yung mga ganun na bagay. And di mo maisip na pwede mo gawin. It's just parang childish fantasy lang din. And so when I was in college, or when I was high school, graduating to college, and I thought I always wanted to be a graphic designer. Kasi I like drawing, I like doing like parang yung planimetric drawings of houses, mga ganon. So I thought graphic design talaga ang course ipapasokin ko. Then as I was going, shopping around different universities and seeing all their programs, yung mga work ginagawa nila, so there was one university I visited, it was the multimedia course, multimedia room. And I saw all this like motion graphics and visual effects, animation, interactive, parang installments and art exhibits. And dude, ako like, that moment, like switch ako. I didn't want to do just graphic design anymore. I didn't want to do print or designing. I want to do this, like, And so, like last minute, career parang change. I entered multimedia design, my course. So this was in Melbourne, Australia. So I took up my multimedia design at Swinburne University. So I did 3 years of that. And malawak, when we say multimedia, very malawak talaga, like what you cover in multimedia. Like you do 3D animation, you do sometimes a bit of like coding, you do like graphic design, motion graphics, all that. But where I really gravitated to, like I really fell in love with, is filmmaking, or in this case, a multimedia was digital filmmaking. And so when like all our projects was like, you get to borrow the school's cameras, you get to write your own scripts and all that. Talagang, I went back to being a child again, like, pwede pala talaga. Like, it is possible pala. I can actually make a film, like, I thought it'd be something like, it'll be like impossible or I'll never get there. And then, I mean, all the more now kasi digital. I mean, this was in the mid-2000s pa. So wala pang, back then, wala pang SD card yata. It was about a memory card where we were using DV tapes. Ano pa?
I8 and V8.
Mga tapes pa ang ginagamit namin sa video cameras namin. And so like, pag ina-download mo sa computer, you have to play it through. There's no copying the file over. You have to record the whole tape, whatever, 1 hour, and digitize it to your computer, and then you edit it and things like that. So there, I really, wow, like I really dug into that aspect of filmmaking. Like I found like, oh, this is what I'm really meant to be doing and what I want to do. And even before that, I was already making comics when I was a kid. And so parang next step na din to sa comics. Kasi when you're making comics, it's also like, it's storyboarding. It's, you're making pacing, you're making story, you're making, you know, angles and kulang na lang audio or music, things like that. And so it was a very logical step from what I was doing already at that time. And then around that time, when I was about 21 years old, my last year of university or college, medyo nagpa 180 ako. I guess I fell into like a weird existential crisis or depression. So I left everything. I left my family. I left my hometown. I left my supposedly prospective career at that time, my girlfriend too at that time, and pumunta ako abroad to become a missionary for the church. Naging parang monka ako, like on the road, you know. I felt like I needed to do something different, you know. I need to like throw my life into something else completely different and, you know, parang mix things up a bit. And then I was doing that for a few years, being a missionary for the church. And then bumalik din. Yung I think talaga si Lord yun. Like, galing din ng Lord na walang naaksaya. So whatever I learned before, just because like I'm volunteering or like, you know, studying for the church, ginamit din yun. So I was making films, I was making videos, I was recording, I was documenting, I was writing for the church naman. And like, so there's times too, we were making a few short films. And then like, itong mga short films, we're really touching on topics like, you know, not just like church topics or like about faith, but stuff about like broken families, broken youth, or even like there's a short film we made, nanalo sa Sri Lanka sa Senior Asia Media Awards. It was about like the effects of mga gadgets on social media sa pamilya, like how it disfragments communications, the family. And so I was doing all that while being like part of the church, being a missionary brother. And then nung bumalik na ako sa Philippines, I was studying up my philosophy sa UST. I thought maybe baka magpapari na ako or something. And yung isang professor namin dun, taga Ateneo, he's a Jesuit priest. Like he saw some of my films and then sabi niya, what are you doing here? Anong ginagawa mo? Like, don't you know, itong mga films mo, this could do so much more good than like yung mga homilies namin sa pulpit sa simbahan. Like this is more effective than yung mga sinasabi namin dyan sa pulpit. And so like, again, like I clicked again, like I had to go back to my roots and like, oh, like this is what I'm meant to be doing talaga. Making stories that matter. Making films that can like touch people's hearts and minds and not just inspire, but hopefully para mag-transform din sa mga tao. And so, yun na, made the decision, like I left that, I went back to the real world, you know, and then, yun, the real world, of course, going back to the real world, you have to face yun, that kind of, for sa atin, mga creatives, like that freelancer lifestyle. And it's very scary the first time, you know, for like sa mga estudyante who are listening, who are, you know, close to graduating, who will graduate. You know, you're diving into the deep end. It's not like yung mga normal 9 to 5 jobs sa mga ibang tao, sa mga ibang fields where you have that security na araw-araw, papasok ka dito, may sweldo ka na ganito. Alam mo, may expect mo every fortnight. With freelancing, you know, it's like, it can be a gig basis, it can be a project basis, or per hour basis, pero pag may work, hindi yung secure yung mga hours na yun. So it was very mahirap. It was hard, struggling and grinding na ganun. So I needed to do something na parang bring more meaning into my life, to bring more, you know, more yung passion, you know, something that will really make your life more rich and happy. And then that's where I decided to make films, personal films, mga passion project films about, you know, like about a cause. And that time, I really felt strongly about telling stories about mental health. So I was making short films about mental health issues, about depression, about suicide, about schizophrenia, and mga ibang, para maging aware ang mga tao. Kasi I think lalo din sa bansa natin, marami pa like ignorant about mental health issues. Sa atin, like when you hear somebody's depressed, pag narinig natin isang estudyante o isang youth na magsasabi ng, oh, depressed ako, whatever, mga older generation, they might just dismiss it, maarte lang yan, or, or if the other end naman, like, oh, baliw, whatever, we can be very insensitive ang mga Pilipino, especially yung mga old schoolers. And so, the way to, hopefully, to parang change that perspective is not to lecture them. Again, di ba, pag nila-lecture tayo, minsan nagta-turn off tayo, but to show them, to show the empathy, to show the understanding. And the best way nga is, what I found is through stories. Kung ipapakita natin through stories ang mga naghihirap mga tao in, like, say, depression or suicidal thoughts, mas naiintindi nila kaysa sasabihin mo lang yung facts, statistics, or this or that. Medyo malamig ang facts, ang information. Pero pag may kwento at nakita mo ang muka, nakita mo ang emotion, nakita mo ang pinapagdaanan, the whole context, the situation, the story, doon mas lalo magigets mo, mas naintindi mo, and more you will get empathy for that, in this case, mental health issues. So that's where I decided to really lean into visual storytelling, using the means to tell stories, to share meaningful messages. And sa akin, I've chosen mental health advocacy. And so it doesn't have to be mental health advocacy. It could be anything. It could be sa mga teachers or sa mga, if you have something important to say, this is the best way to say it, through visual storytelling. Kaya for me, personally, ayoko lang gumawa lang ng kwento or film na for entertainment's sake. Kasi for me, sayang. It's like, there's a platform, you have a voice, hindi lahat ng tao may boses, might as well say something meaningful or impactful or inspiring or important. So that was my journey. So ngayon, that's what I do. That's my passion projects. What I do, I run a YouTube channel and I do content creation for both mental health information, also like filmmaking, because I want to empower mga other people to also tell their stories. I want them to, ngayon, it's so much easier ngayon, like even before, nun, sa atin, I think when the DSLR revolution came, yung mga Canon, yung mga 2008, Canon Mark D, when all that came out, like, oh, you can make like really good videos with DSLR cameras, and mas cheaper yun kesa sa like a real video professional camera or film. And so that made it like more accessible sa mga tao. And then all the more now, fast forward to 2021, we have smartphones with like really advanced sensors and high megapixel count, and iPhone 13 has like cinematic mode and all these things. Like all the more now, nasa access na natin ang means to tell stories. Access na natin our means to make films and visual stories. So that's what I try to do on my channel, is try to empower people to be able to tell their own stories, while also sharing stories about mental health awareness. And so in this lecture, that's what we'll go through. It's an introduction on why do we need visual stories, and how can we tell our stories visually, why it's impactful. So.
Yon. Okay.
Right. Cool. So I think like, why is visual storytelling so powerful? One, film and video. They provide sound and moving images. Like it's a very audio-visual, very on your senses, and it's very powerful, very imposing. But it accomplishes two things better than any other media, better than print, better than even like radio or whatever. One, visual stories, they show people to people. Very powerful, yung very fact na yun na makikita mo ang mukha ng isang tao. Diba, you can read a person, or you can even see into their soul pag face-to-face kayo. And in visual stories, you have that possibility. You see other people. And then two, what makes visual stories so powerful is that they can also capture yung sense na, a sense of experience, nandun ka, a sense of being there. With that combination of sound and visuals, if you have really good sound design. So like other media rarely come as close. So for example, like nakabasa ka ng news item sa Rappler or something about like the latest typhoon at pumasok yung, so it's like, the article is reading about the damages sa mga bahay, may landslide, things like that. Marami na, nawalan ng mga bahay. That's one thing. You read it as an article, so you read it as facts. But if you watch that as a video, kung may meron nag-camera on their phone, as it's happening, pakita mo na nalulutang na yung mga furniture or nasa second floor na sila sa bubong, and people like naghihingi ng tulong. That is so much more powerful than just say reading a print article or a screen article. So it's very powerful among visual stories. I remember watching that video yung time na yung earthquakes in Japan, 2011. There was this one video, it was like 7 minutes long. Nasa bubong siya o nasa bundok, and then yung buong town from 1 minute to 7 minutes nawala. Like you saw it. Hindi naman, it's not time lapse, it's all real time in 7 minutes. Nawala yung buong mga buildings, like you saw it wash away, and it's so like emotional, like seeing that. Kesa nabasa mo lang yung headlines and news. So very powerful mga visual stories. Now, why do we need stories? Bakit kailangan natin marinig ng mga kwento? Of course, mga Filipinos, we love hearing chismis, we love hearing stories about our neighbors or about kamag-anak. But for us, it's very important in the history of humanity. Stories allows us to share our human experience and understanding. Everything, yung mga first explorers, mga nagsasail, mga nagdiscover ng mga ibang mga bagong bansa o isla, we learn from their writings, we learn from their stories, from their journals, and from the artists, from the scientists, lahat. Like even in photography, we've learned so much in just seeing like the photos throughout the last 100 years, what's happened in the history of humanity. And so we get to share that same human experience, and we can also understand yung mga nangyayari sa mga kapwa natin. So stories also, they help us understand ourselves. Kung nakita natin yun, magpapatingin tayo sa sarili natin. Like, what about me? Ako din, like, magagawa ko ba yun? What can I do? Can I help? And who am I? Kung nangyari yun sa kanila, how about me? And so we grow in self-knowledge beyond our own personal experience. Kasi kung tayo lang, there's only so much we can learn. But if we see others, if we experience yung mga stories ng ibang tao, mas lumalawak yung knowledge and experience natin. And for me, the best stories talaga are the ones that address the larger issues. They tell a bigger picture. And kaya yun, like, sometimes diba when you watch a film, minsan may mga maganda mga pelikula, but in the end, parang, ano yung point? Parang, oh wow, but what was the point of all that? Minsan may ganun, naghahanap ako ng, what are you trying to say? May iba naman, like they open up the issues pero wala naman silang parang statement about it, or they're just, they're not leaning on one side or the other. So, but some of the really best stories, they're about something else bigger. So we can get like even a deeper understanding about it. So it can be something like, it can be a rom-com, but it can be about something about the human nature in relationships and loneliness maybe, or something. Or, in my case, I tried to do short films that somehow shed light on mental health conditions in people. So visual stories, they help the viewers feel like they're part of the action. And they experience the events and the emotions on screen. So of course, you get that if you're watching like Transformers, Sinian, big movie like that. But it can also work on a smaller and quieter level. You're really invested in a character at, umiiyak na, nagbe-breakdown na nafe-feel mo yung ikaw din, you are experiencing that action or that emotion or that experience in that moment. But again, I mentioned this earlier, but I really believe when you're telling the audience, it's lecturing. And then when you're showing the audience, it's teaching. But when you let them experience the moment, then now that's visual storytelling. They feel like even sila, they're part of the story. So in this first part, let's go. How do you develop a story? So yung mga out there who is interested in making maybe their first short film, or even a documentary, or they want to write a short story on paper, or maybe even this applies to those who want to be vloggers. That's the whole part of storytelling. How do you develop a good, immersive, or interesting story? Um, but this typically I follow this 8-step process, and this more applies to filmmaking, but some of this too you can also apply to other fields as well. But first, it always begins with the concept or the idea. Ano yung idea mo for a story? Ano yung concept na interesting sa'yo that you would like to also share to somebody else? And yeah, a lot of movies were just built on that, one simple idea. Uh, my favorite film of all time is Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, starring Jim Carrey. A very creative movie. The rom-com, and it's about erasing the other person from their memory, and mga visual effects. Kasi it's very lo-fi, very in-camera mga visual effects. Konti lang yung CG or whatever. But that story, actually that script won an Academy Award for Best Original Screenplay. But that story itself, it came from a simple idea lang. Isang concept lang. It came from yung friend ng screenwriter. He's a magician, or I think a clown or a magician. Nagkwento sa kanya, what if, imagine you received a little card sa mail, at nakasulat doon this person has erased you from her memory. Ganun lang. From that little simple idea of a little prop, gumawa sa this whole story and script and movie. So for you, what could that little idea be, or a little concept or spark can be? And once you have that, number 2 is what I call a pagbubuntis stage. So you're gonna develop it. It's gonna grow. It's gonna because it's embryonic na. You need to feed it. You need to make it develop and have its own arms and legs para mag-grow. And so dalawang part yung itong pagbubuntis. I'm not gonna teach you how to pagbubuntis, but how to develop your story. One, research. I think you really need to invest some time to research on your topic or your idea, at least realistic. Pag kulang yung research, baka hindi mag-connect ang mga tao kasi hindi naman realistic yan. And then 2, you can also start developing yung idea ng storyline mo, yung flow, kung saan pupunta yung kwenta mo. And number 3, it's still, we're still very early on developing your story. Think about your character. It's really important to have a character kasi yun, dun sasakay yung audience. The character, or the main character particularly, is the vehicle for the audience to experience the story, to understand. It's from that person's point of view. So you need to think about the character's backstory. Saan ba siya, where did he come from? Ano ba nangyari sa kanya in the past? Even if you don't show this sa story mo, maganda malaman din yung backstory ng character mo. At least kasi yung sa atin, anybody, who we are now is usually because of what has happened in the past. Mga decisions natin o mga nangyari sa atin. Same with this character. Whatever has happened in the backstory of that character, that informs how that person is in the present and ano yung mga decisions gagawa niya in the present moment. So think of the backstory. 2, think of where that character is now, yung status quo ng yung character mo ngayon. Nasaan siya ba siya? Where is he in his life? Or is he lost? Is he in a place of comfort and then mag-disrupt yung kwento niya? He'll be swept away into an adventure. Then 3rd, when you're developing the character, is ano yung goal niya? So every character should have a goal or an objective. Pag walang goal yung character, then parang sumasakay lang siya sa roller coaster ng plot. And then parang wala lang. He's wala siyang decision, wala siyang choice, wala siyang control over what's happening. And then hindi naman ganun. Sa buhay natin, we have infinite choices, infinite decisions. Tayo nag-guide ng sariling buhay natin. Tayo nag-guide ng sariling story natin. So for your character, ano ba yung goal ng character mo? To get the girl's number, or to win a gold medal, to fight off the aliens invading the Earth. Itong elements na dapat very clear yung objective sa character. Next, when you're developing your story, you should really have conflict. Ito this is the gold of your story. The more conflict, the more interesting. The more conflict, the more suspenseful. The more conflict, the more intense. Pag walang conflict, it's just easygoing, and then What are we watching? Parang nanonood lang tayo ng mga damo na nag-grow. So think about what's the conflict of your character. And usually, it's the opposite of the goal or yung naghaharang sa goal ng character. So always think of that. So for example, I'm just thinking of an example, like say Spider-Man, Spider-Man wants the girl, Mary Jane, pero nerdy siya, and then, of course, he gets bitten by a spider, gets powers, becomes Spider-Man, pero may conflict pa rin kasi he can't share his identity, and then, of course, may mga bad guys pa. So, conflict can be personal, it can be external, it can be internal, marami yung conflict. It can be monsters, aliens, it can be earthquakes, volcanoes, it can be sarili natin, yung mga negative thoughts natin or a mental condition like maybe depression or schizophrenia. So maraming conflict you can actually apply to a character or a story. And then number 5, so you've developed your character, you've thought of the conflict or multiple conflicts, ano yung resolution, ano yung ending. Dapat clear din kung saan mo gusto pupunta yung kwento mo. That way, para, I don't know if you have that experience na pag minsan nagkukwento ka sa mga kaibigan and you're just going on and then mawawala ka sa sariling kwento mo kasi, saan ba ako pupunta sa kwento nito? You end up rambling kasi you don't know where you're going. Knowing the ending or the resolution, especially very early on, can really help direct your story. So, minsan nga, like you can even start from the end. Alam mo na yung ending, and then from there, go backwards. Now, how do you get to that ending? And then the resolution, it could be the fulfillment of the goal, or even better, it might be not the fulfillment of the goal, but something even better than the goal, like a need of the character. So hindi niya nakuha yung girl, pero he grew as a person and became mature and maybe met someone else or something else more important. So know your ending is very important. This applies to not just narrative short films, but say you're a content creator. You're making your videos for YouTube or for podcasts. Like, know what you want to say in the end. Know, kasi itong very important yung ending kasi it's the last impression. This is what will stay with the audience or the viewer in the end. Sayang, may mga maganda yung kwento, maganda yung start, maganda yung gitna. Pero pag yung ending bitin, pag yung ending disappointing, then lahat parang nasayang yung lahat ng effort na gawa mo. So make sure the ending is very strong, very impactful, very potent. Yeah. But don't make sure it's not a weak ending. And then once you have all those kind of main elements, the character, the resolution, the ending, conflict, then you can start building it first step by step. Number 6 is building a sentence outline or you're defining the beats of the story. Parang kinikwento mo in bullet form what's happening in each. Boy meets girl. Another boy takes girl away. Then parang isang sentence lang and you're slowly parang making a skeleton of your story. Very broad sa una. Then when you develop it more, you can go into you can make a sequence treatment. So you're making paragraphs now about each story point or bullet point. You can even make it like a short narrative, like a short story, so that mo in a prose form. Then lastly, you make your draft now or your first draft na with dialogue, with scene descriptions, and everything that's happening. And it's very important nga na you always think of the story first. And ako naniniwala talaga like in a good pre-production and having a good script before making a movie. Kasi ito talaga yung blueprint mo. Ito yung plan of attack mo. If you just go out and shoot na hindi mo alam yung kwento gano, like, it's very sabog. I mean, you don't know where you're gonna go. You don't know what you're gonna end up with. Maraming oras mauubos. And then if you have talent, if you have mga nag-rent ka ng gear or whatever, so it's not very economical. It's not very efficient. So the more you have it there on the paper, on your script, and then also the pre-production revolving around the script, then the more successful your production will be. Well, that's just the 8 steps that I would develop a story or a script. So again, 1, you have your idea, concept. 2, you start developing yung pagbubuntis ng idea mo by researching and then developing the storyline. 3, the character build-up, thinking of the backstory and their goal. 4, the conflict of the story, of the character even. 5, yung ending or resolution, and then 6, 7, 8, you're building your script into more detail and fleshing it out. And then, what also really helps too, like as you're developing your story, is to have structure. You know, so like a story itself, yung has different scenes, yung mga nangyayari, and it should be every scene, yung nga, it's pushing the story forward. Hindi lang may scene na for that sake na, okay, like you're seeing someone making coffee, and then yun lang. Did it serve the purpose of telling your story? Or ano? Oh, like minsan ito, like maganda, like yung mga examples like films ni Quentin Tarantino, like they just talk about anything, rambling na has nothing to do with the prop. And then you might think that's not, like, oh, how about does that to do with the story? But actually, in his case, it's adding more to like the realism or the context of the overall story. So in that sense, it does help. But otherwise, say you're making a short film, very short yung time mo, very succinct yung ano. So every word, every scene, every shot really matters, sana. And that's why everything's very purposeful and decisive. And structure is one thing that helps. Like it holds and it binds the story together over its course. So like plays, films or stories are composed of scenes, sequences, and acts. You always hear like act 1, act 2, mga ganun. And once you understand these, makakatulong yun. Like your scenes or your story can fall into place. I was listening to Sir Hero, Sir JC, your podcast about the templates of the SDE and the other mga photographers and the verses. It's like this too. Like, yes, it's a template. A story structure is a template, but it's the underlying. It's not like every story is like a clone or a photocopy of every other story. Actually, sabi nga daw, there's no original stories in film. It's always a variation of something. Nagawa na. Every story nagawa na talaga. It's how you tell the story. But every story has a structure. Every story, every film, particularly, you can actually identify Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, yung mga points where they, break into. And so it's not something like, when you guys were talking about having a template when you're editing a wedding video or like photography or like the slideshow, it's not something to look down upon. Like this is the underlying structure of something, a process of where we're working to. So. And it helps speed the process, of course. Just like in the wedding industry, it helps deliver a product, to the clients readily and more available. Here, the story, it helps us develop our story even better. It becomes a tool, having the story structure. And so you have different types of structure, like the 3-act structure, which is like old as storytelling itself. 3-act structure, sila Aristotle pa gumagamit ito. He was talking about 3-act structure back in ancient Greece, in Athens. And so, very simple lang talaga. It's like you can define as having a beginning, a middle, and an end. Where the beginning is the setup of the story, the middle is the conflict, and then the end is the resolution. And this doesn't just apply to like narrative films. This can also apply to like wedding videos, sports videos, even family videos. So yung act 1 mo, like what set up the scenario, what's happening. So like in a wedding video, for example, it's like, they're preparing. It's the preparations for the wedding. And then, act 2, you're getting into the church ceremony. And act 3, it's all the speeches and the reception and things like that. And so it could be applied to content creators, into blogging. Even in content creation, for example, like in SEO, Sir Hero, like we always talk about like your first act could be like your hook. It could be like, oh, you're explaining what it is, what's the need of the audience, what they want to learn, and then the middle, the meat of the contents is the second act, and then the third act, you're summarizing it and you're giving that resolution, like what the audience is looking for. So the 3-act structure you can really apply to anything and everything. It's more rare is the 2-act structure. It's rarely used, but when it is used, it's very effective. So what's a 2-act structure? 2-act structure is a setup and then a conflict or walang resolution. It's an act 1, act 2, bitin. Bakit bitin? Because either you want the story to be like You want it to be thought-provoking. Mag-iisip ang tao, bakit ganun yung problema? And then so in their own lives, sila ang gagawa ng third act. Sila ang gagawa ng resolution. So ganitong films for like advocacy or showing, during the time of martial law, in the Philippines, we have a lot of awesome mga martial law movies by Lina Broca and all that, Bernal. And a lot of those movies were too structure. Hindi happy ending. A lot of those ending, napatay yung bida or nakulong yung bida. Kasi the director wants to show yung problema ng panahon na yun, that time. And so, para mag-revolt yung tao. Like, this is not acceptable yung nangyayari ngayon. So we must take action. So, ang ganda ng 2-act structure nga. I would love to see more of that, in the mainstream or these days. But yeah, that's a 2-act structure. You have the setup, you have the problem, but it's never resolved. Pero mag-iisip yung audience, paano kaya ma-resolve to? And sana sa buhay nila, they will take that into action. Then also you have the 1-act structure. 1-act structure naman is just very simple, parang introductory story. You're introducing a character, introducing a situation. Ito bagay for short films. Mga short films, there's even like full-length films that are 1-act structure. Like for example, yung kay M. Night Shyamalan, yung Unbreakable with Bruce Willis. That movie was like, the whole movie was an origin story for a superhero. So it was like a 1-act structure for a bigger movie. And then lo and behold, 17 years later, nakagawa na siya ng part 2, part 3 pala, yung Split and then yung Glass. So yeah, 1-act structure is very simple lang, where you just introduce an idea, concept, a story, or a character. The last type of structure, which is very simple and more, I guess, bagay, especially for content creators, is the punchline or the gag films. Ito, you just have it very simple. You just have a setup, something is happening, and then a payoff, the punchline or the twist. You're doing like a short horror film. Ano yung nangyayari, may pumapasok sa bahay, and then what's the twist in the end? It's your own mother who's become a monster or something. Or if it's a comedy video or a joke, ganun din. We set it up, and then boom, so huli, we twist, we punch, me that thing. So those are just some of the simple types of structure, but there's more actually. Like if you want to research more to deeper structure, may mga hero's journey structure, may Dan Harmon's story circle. So there's a lot of ways that you can also structure your story, especially if it's a longer length story. So, and we're also thinking of structure or a story. Think of it yung like a rising action. You're building up the story, the tension, the conflict, like to a point talaga, it reaches the climax and madadala din tayo doon, like, and then in the end, when we get to that resolution, we go into the spoiling action or the denouement, where it's unwinding the story and you're processing ano nangyari. So always think of that too when you're making your videos, if it's for YouTube, making a story on paper or doing a vlog, make it always build up. Sayang may iba, nasa start na yung magandang scene, magandang kwento, and then sa huli, it starts dying out. And so, tune out yung mga audience mo. And so, always aim for that kind of arc na magbe-build up, parang roller coaster. And sa huli, really take them down. That covers yung story developing yung story natin. How about now, using the tools of like cinematography? Kasi if we're visual storytellers, like say a normal storyteller, gumagamit sila ng words, whether by writing or by vocal, share nila. Sa atin naman, visual storytelling, yung words naman natin are shots, are scenes, are angles. And so, may sarili tayong language, it's a visual language. And so we're gonna talk more about that film grammar, mga basics of the visual language. And so, of course, you have the basic building block of a visual story is the shot. One single continuous take or one recording, that's a shot. So essentially, there's 3 basic shots lang talaga for cinematographer to use. It's either a long shot, a medium shot, or close-up. Then from that, may mga variations na yun. Medium close-up, or extreme close-up, or extreme long shot. So essentially, it's just those 3 kind of shots that we can play around with, when we're telling our story. And each one has its own meaning and its own purpose. So, for example, anong pang function ng gumamit ng wide shot, lalo na extreme wide shot. So a wide shot is ang layo ng camera sa subject. So for example, you could use a wide shot to show one, maybe gusto mo pakita yung location sa kwento. So it's an establishing shot or it's based in here. But two, what if you can also use it more like psychologically? Like you want to show yung tao na yun, maliit siya. He's lonely or he's feeling alienated. And so having him visually small or insignificant sa screen, you're communicating that sense of parang this person feels like an ant, parang langgam lang siya. He has, parang in the whole scheme of things, ganito lang ako, maliit lang. So using a wide shot, for example, can communicate that. Then of course you have your medium shot. Medium shot is just really a half body shot from the torso up. And you have your close-up, of course, where you go into the head and extreme close-up talaga, nakaano ka na sa mata. So each of these shots, if you use it purposefully by itself, it's like using the right mga words, adjectives if you're writing. You're writing with shots naman in terms of a visual story. And so kung gusto mo talaga i-emphasize yung lungkot ng isang character, magka-close up ka sa mata, either yung fear sa mata or yung luha sa mata or and then it's the combination. Pag ginamit mo itong combination of shots in a sequence, there's more of that sense of immersion. For example, mag-start ka sa wide shot, next shot mag-medium shot, then you go to close up, the extreme close up, parang you're getting to know the character in that sense, or come backwards. You can start off close up, then mag-medium shot, then you go to a wide shot. Parang lumalayo ka sa subject, sa character. Parang nag-distance siya kasi you don't agree with that character, or like yung bida naging killer na, naging immoral na. So like the audience physically through the screen is also distancing from this character. Like the filmmaker does not condone the actions of that character. So a tip here is get coverage. When you're making your story, when you're filming a story, get a variety of shots. At least we call it safety in the industry. You get your safety, you get a medium, wide, long, and that's why you also have multiple like cameramen. For ikaw lang, you're a one-man shooter, then yeah, just reframe. Get different shots, reframing yourself, moving yourself, your position. Then at least sa editing, you can choose, marami kang choices ng mga story blocks to tell your story. Now we go to camera angles naman. So you have the shots, how you compose your distance from the subject. Even the camera angle can also have a lot of meaning in communication. So the first angle, of course, is the eye level, where you have your camera nakaset up, ka-eye level lang ng subject mo, ng bida mo. And then, so it's a neutral angle. And this is, this is the normal angle you would normally use. It means, you're identifying with the character, ka-level mo yung character, you understand that person, that subject. In a documentary film, this is very useful as well to keep it eye level kasi we want to empathize with the interview subject. But then when you start mixing some different camera angles, for example, you can have a low angle naman, where the camera naka-positioned lower, ang tingin niya pataas sa subject. So sometimes we call this worm's eye view kasi parang nasa lupa ka, you're a worm looking up at everything else, looking up. And a low angle shot naman, for example, can convey a sense of power, a sense of importance. Kasi tinitingnan mo yung tao pataas, like, ang laki niya. He's bigger than life, or he's so imposing, or he's so big, or so powerful. And so you can communicate that sense of, he's powerful, or he's important, baka political figure, or he's heroic, like the bida of the story, or a superhero. So a low angle shot would be like perfect for that. Then you have naman opposite of that, the high angle shot, where mataas yung camera, it's looking down on the subject. Sometimes we call this bird's eye view naman. And so this is meant to make the subject look, again, small, or tumitingin tayo pababa sa character. So we look down literally on this person. So you would use this if you want us to like feel pity sa subject na yan, or he's a despicable person, or we don't, this person is worthless, or you want that feeling to feel like he's nobody. Ang tingin natin, we can use this high angle to look down on that person or that subject. You want to really go extreme naman, we have the the top-down view, like derechong patas, or what I call God's eye view sometimes. This now, in more recent times, has become more used, more popular thanks to drones, drone technology, drone photography, videography, and no, it has its own purposes as well. Like apart from like showing like cars driving in the street or walking, or you're showing the like a city or lugar location. But again, you can also use it narratively, making a first person feel again small or insignificant. Diba? Who are we compared to God? Well, we're tiny, we're finite beings. So parang ganun. Like I saw a short film sa Cinemalaya a few years ago. Galing, the whole film was shot on drones lang. And you never saw the characters' faces. Pataas lang. Pero the whole kwento was just like that. Composition of the characters on like you're looking down from space. Parang ikaw ang aliens. And yung nga ang title. The title was Aliens ata. Ng short film name. But it was very innovative and yet powerful like way it was done. Kasi yung nga, it's parang like, what if God is observing us? In that case, or aliens are observing yung buhay ng mga tao. So in that case, that kind of top-down was used. Also, for content creators, top-down is what we'd use for mga unboxing videos or like product review videos and things like that. So again, very practical din ang use ng camera angle na yun. Then lastly, I just want to mention this last angle. It's more of a novelty angle. It's the Dutch angle. The Dutch angle or the Dutch tilt ang tawag is when the camera is tilted, medyo askew yung camera, like nakatilt sa right or to left. And usually you would show or use this na something's not right or something is twisted or something. I am very uso to sa mga horror movies. Yung nga lang, very sad. Nakikita ko ngayon, medyo na overuse or na abuse sa mga action films na Transformers. Nakita ko sa Transformers na, ang dami, everything's Dutch angle na, like for no purpose na, I guess just became like a style, but no substance. But originally, when you would use a Dutch angle, you want to show, this person is insane, or he's going to like kill you, or there's something's not right with this scene or this person. So those are the different angles that you can use: the neutral angle, low angle, high angle, top down, and if you really want to go, Dutch angle, Dutch tilt. So for those who can see visually, we have some visual examples here, just from like some of the Marvel films. And then, so we talked about shots, talked about angles. Lastly, I want to talk about movement naman, camera movement. And so, again, just like with shots, just like with angles, even camera movement can convey or communicate something in the story. It can really, it's not just practical lang na maganda yung shot, but it can actually serve to tell a story, a camera movement, as well as shot or angle. And so the first camera movement that most of us are familiar with siguro is the zoom, where your camera is just in one spot. Hindi naman gumagalaw yung camera. Actually, in reality, it's not really a camera movement. It's a fake camera movement. And then you're just kind of using either a zoom lens or you're cropping in your image. That's how you're achieving going closer to the subject without actually physically going closer to the subject. In filmmaking, this was actually looked down upon for a while. Kasi it's the most unnaturalistic movement, camera movement. Kasi sa totoong buhay, our eyes cannot zoom. Hindi tayo Terminator, hindi tayo robots. We cannot zoom. We have to move forward if you want to see something. And so a camera zooming as if that's the place of the human eye, medyo unnaturalistic. Pero over the last few years and decades, naging popular na din in action movies or even in comedy movies for like emphasis. So it's there. It's a choice that you can use for a camera movement. The next camera movement naman is panning. So again, your camera, static, it's not moving, but you're in one axis, you're moving your you're tilting, you're panning your camera left and right, you're swiveling. So if you have a tripod, yes, you should use a tripod for this kind of shot. You're just moving it left and right, you're panning. So you're panning, you're surveying the landscape, you're showing the wideness of the scene. And it could be used to, like for example, like a reveal shot. You want to reveal a character at the end of the pan movement, or you just really want to show the whole environment or the landscape. And connected to the pan shot is the tilt shot naman. And that's up and down naman. Camera staying in one spot, pero it's moving its focus up and down, tilting up and down. So similar to pan shot, you can use this also to show something not wide, but something that is tall. For example, maybe a tall building, or yung character matangkad siya, or it's a reveal, maybe a reveal of the sexy femme fatale. And you start from the feet and then to the legs, and you go up to the face and the lipstick, and then the deadly smile. And so yeah, I think it's really important to know the terminology too, because when you know what each of the terms are, then you can easily instruct. For example, if you're a director, you can instruct your DP, your cameraman, your camera operator. Mas claro once you have the vocabulary in the language. Kasi I think for those who don't know, parang sa kanila, tilt is lahat. Oh, tilt up, tilt left, tilt, diba? Lahat na tilt. Actually, a tilt is really just up and down in using your tripod. And so then the panning is the left and right. So now we also go into dolly, a dolly shot. And so this time the camera is moving. So this is very different from a zoom shot, because this time yung camera mo physically it's going in and out. So it's called a dolly because a dolly shot, dolly in or dolly out. Kasi usually the camera is on a platform na may gulong, and so you can roll it. It's going moving forward or moving back, or it could be on a car sometimes or something. So dolly in, dolly out. So you would use a shot like this to get closer to a subject, getting to know the subject, or if it's going out, dollying out, for example, we're moving away from what's happening. Or a good example, I think I had a great dolly out shot 1917, the war movie, in one take. It was like the camera is just running backwards as the character is running in front, and then you're seeing the whole war behind the character, bombs and bodies and everything. So that's also like a dolly shot. So you can follow the action, moving backwards or forwards. Again, similarly, you have tracking shot. So tracking naman is you moving left to right. So again, they call it track kasi when they do this type of shots on a Hollywood set or a movie production set, yung mga realist talaga. There's tracks on the floor where the platform and the wheels are on. So the camera is following the track. And so, but in a very specific sense, yung tracking left, tracking right. So you're just going left and right. You're following, for example, maybe a car going along, the character walking, maybe. It could be a reveal shot at the end of the tracking shot. There's a very famous tracking shot sa Martin Scorsese's Taxi Driver, yung pulling shot. They did like a tracking in a hallway, and then it ends up like, I think it was a bloody hallway and people are dead and something like that. That was the reveal was at the end of the track. And then from dolly's in and out, track is left and right, crane shot naman is moving the camera up and down. So again, it was called crane because it's parang sa mga construction, you have a crane na may platform tumataas, bumababa. So you have a shot there, yeah, maybe you want to reveal something like a lake or a cliff or something, or you want to show the wide expense of the scene or the scenario. You can move the camera up or down. And so lately, the crane shot has been kind of more, not obsolete, but not because we have drones. It's very easy to do this kind of shot now. Before, like 10 years ago, we really had the jib. Diba? We used to use a jib or a mini crane sa mga videographers, sa mga wedding. Nakaset up yan sa labas ng simbahan. Ready na sila paglabas ng mga bride and groom. Like, tataas nila yung crane. Ngayon, you can do like, you can even do like mga hacks sa mga long selfie stick where yung may mga ganun gumagawa sa na kind of fake crane shot. So those are the different kind of actions, camera movements. Sorry. So you have the zoom, static lang yung camera, it's going in and out. You have the pan, looking left and right, tilt, looking up and down. The dolly moving in and out, the track moving left and right, and the crane moving up and down. So just a tip here, like how do you pick from all these different movie movements or shots or angles? One simple way is just follow the action. Follow where the character is going to. Follow where the subject is going to. So pretend that the camera is the eyes of the audience. And so always think of the best view. What's the best view that the audience can have of the story that's happening? Kaya it's very powerful talaga ang film compared to say like stage or drama or film. Like you can't zoom in, you can't move, you can't emphasize. Kaya doon, on stage acting, it's so parang may konting exaggeration, and you know, you have to project your movements. Here, you can get so many like subtle nuances because you can zoom in all the way up close or move the camera this way and that way, and even do impossible things like mga bullet times, the Matrix, you know, like so very powerful what we can do with cinematic language, like camera angles, camera shots, and camera movement. And then just the last part about cinematography, we can go through some of the composition rules. And so some of this actually applies to photography as well. So for example, the rule of thirds, very, very simple and common rule in photography and cinematography where we place the subject or the point of interest on either of the intersecting third lines. Like somehow naturally we find it more comfortable, more pleasing when something is placed not dead center, but like slightly off center, or certain like the eye level is always on the top third, for example, or um, things are always placed in a nice balanced way on your screen or your canvas. You know, if you're ever to do art, diba, like composition of your art piece, depending on the shape of your canvas, you'll place things in different, I don't know, to create balance. Same with the film screen. You can use the rule of thirds to create a composition and a balanced and also very pleasing. Medyo connected din sa rule of thirds is having head space or lead space. So for example, when a character is side view or even slightly side view, just looking outwards, you need to have that kind of lead space, that breathing space to where that person's looking to. So kaya yung placement ng character looking to the right, placement ng character is on the left. So leaving a blank space on the right side kasi dun siya nakatingin. Now, then you can also use that guide as for placing the eyes. Kung saan nakapwesto yung eye level nila. Same with the head too. You don't want to chop off the heads then sa taas. Make sure they're, again, very pleasing composition wise. You can keep this in mind, the head space and then the lead space, where they're looking out to, and then in film, this is a very particular part of filmmaking is the 180-degree rule sa composition. But something like this might not apply so much in photography, but in film, kasi there's different camera shots and movement, and you have subjects, you want to create a sense of consistency, visual consistency. And the consistency for the viewer is what they see on the screen. So it's a 2D space. Whereas sa atin, the one holding the camera, the director, we work in the 3D space. And so where do we place our cameras? And so pretending, like when you have two subjects, you would imagine an imaginary line connecting those two subjects. And then using that as a guide, you can place your camera anywhere on one side of that line. Kaya 180 degree. Kung 360, you can go around the character anywhere. Pero yung effect no, when you look on the screen, the way it's placed, it might be confusing to the viewer because sometimes one character will be on the left side of the screen, but then the way you place your camera, in the next shot, that's the right side of the screen. So this also applies to, like, for example, things like walks the doorway, or walking into the frame. Everything should be consistent where a person is always on the left side and that person is on the right side, or the entrance is on the left side, the exit's on the right side. So using this 180-degree rule can guide us on camera placement, where we put our camera, making sure that there's a visual consistency para hindi ma-confuse yung viewer or audience. And then also another thing to consider, this one definitely applies to photography as well, is trying to create depth in your composition. Having elements, not just the subject, but having background elements, having foreground elements, having middle ground elements. And adding that kind of depth in your scene definitely adds more richness, especially if the camera is moving. It makes that space more, more immersive, more real. Yung mga elements dun, hindi lang static na one person and walang relation sa room. So I think also have depth in your composition, adding things in the front, or even sometimes like in photography, diba? Like we also have like stuff that are like in the super foreground that are blurred out and stuff in the background, and things like that. Like you're shooting off of the edge of a tree, maybe. Same thing applies in cinematography or filmmaking. And so, yeah, you have all these rules. I'm using quotation marks for like rules, rule of thirds, and head space, lead space, 180-degree rule, and depth. Like, it's good to know the rules, but know that rules can also be broken. And so, but before you can break the rules, of course, is you have to know the rules, master them. Then once you've mastered them, then you can break them intentionally and be creative. So, for example, like rule of thirds. If you're a fan of no, Wes Anderson films, that guy throws out rule of thirds out the door. Lahat ng shots and composition niya are symmetrical, centered, aligned shots. And it's beautiful. Like when you look at it, it's like, it looks unnatural. It almost looks like a fantasy. It looks so perfect. It looks so pristine, very candy colored. And that's his intention. That's his purpose of shooting in that kind of composition, because he wants to show a parang otherworldly story, or yung parang it's not exactly our world, or it could be kind of fantasy world almost what he's trying to show. Kaya medyo odd when you're seeing something so dead center or so perfectly symmetrical. Well, there he just broke the rule of thirds there. And another example, great example, one of my favorite TV shows, Mr. Robots, about a hacker who is like an ethical hacker. He hacks the rich among corporations and gives the money to the poor. In this TV show, lahat ng composition, it's just so off. Nothing is rule of thirds. Nothing is like someone's like off screen, na konti nakaputol yung mukha, or nasa baba ng screen, or like it's like he's really like, the goal of the director in this case is to make you feel off na. Like something's not right. Something is, you feel uneasy. Like yun ang goal na. Parang like the same with the Dutch tilt, but in this case, like you really like throws the rule of thirds like out the window and makes you feel like, oh, this is weird. And you also feel the alienation of the character, kasi yung character then he suffers from anxiety, depression. So medyo you feel yung paranoia niya then with this kind of weird cinematography or framing. Then another great example of breaking the rules is Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight. That infamous scene na nag-interrogate si Batman kay Joker. In that scene, like if you really watch that scene, the director, si Christopher Nolan, he really just breaks the 180-degree rule. So sometimes Batman will be on the left, sometimes the Joker will be on the left side. And the camera is always moving around them with different placements. And again, what's the director communicating in that scene? He wants to show that one, medyo blurred sila. That Batman and Joker might actually be the same parang type of person sila. You know? They're both misunderstood. They're both kind of weird, psychotic, or obsessive. And so, yun yung point ng director by breaking the 180-degree rule in that case. Parang almost mirror image sila. Like you can, one or the other are interchangeable characters. So again, know the rules first before you can break them. Once you've mastered the rules, then you can use it effectively to be more creative by breaking those rules. And then here, just wrapping up now, going to my final thoughts. So we've talked about how to develop a story, especially for the screen, and then talking about the visual language, film grammar. Now we can really utilize this to be able to tell our own stories. And so we hear the saying, words are cheap. Like a lot of advertisers use words, a lot of people, a lot of politicians use words, pero walang kwenta kasi there's no value. They don't deliver in their words. And then another saying, a popular saying is seeing is believing. Naniniwala lang tayo once we see it, the final product, for example, or the effect, or seeing the example of it. And so same thing with visual storytelling. It's one thing to tell people a story, pero pag nakita nila, when they see it, all the more they can believe in the story, they can empathize with the story, the characters, and even be part of the story. Because what they're seeing is not just being told to them, but they're experiencing it. So yeah, people will rather believe in what they see than have it simply told to them. And so here's a PowerPoint slide. I've got a picture of Jesus Christ. Because, like, there's a say, I think, see Gandhi. Gandhi said, like, oh, I believe in Jesus Christ, but I believe in Christ, but I don't believe in Christians. Because sometimes, like you have people who represent a certain thing, but then their actions don't reflect what they're saying or what they're preaching. And so for us as visual storytellers, we have that opportunity to show authenticity, to show the realness we were talking about before, like rawness in story and what's real. Kasi you're seeing it. It's not just being told to us, it's not written. Makikita nating emotion sa tao, the sincerity sa mata ng tao. And you see, you know, like whatever, where the story is, the environment is, and yung effect sa mga ibang tao. Kaya very powerful with visual storytelling is when you see other people, you really connect, you really believe, and you really invest into that kind of story. So yeah, like just tips or some mga aspiring filmmakers out there or storytellers, the more you master the language of film, the more clear and eloquent you can communicate your ideas as a filmmaker. And it's just like a writer. If you're a blog writer, a novelist, or author, you know, you can't automatically write a New York Times bestselling novel the first time. Like you really have to know your vocabulary, your language, your the English language, and using the different kind of literary devices. And then you can be more eloquent and clear when you tell your story. The same with being a visual storyteller. Pag na-master mo yung mga, not just the what we spoke earlier. This is just the introduction of like camera shots and camera angles, but the application of those, using those purposefully is what will make you a very effective and successful visual storyteller. And the best way to learn is, of course, by doing. That's one thing to listen, to hear, to watch even, but when you apply it, when you do it yourself, that's when you'll really take it upon you. That's when you'll really learn it, and it becomes your skill. It becomes your language even. So learn by doing. Write the script. Write your own script. Familiarize your camera settings. Like if you have your own camera, maybe before, you're always been like an auto shooter. Like take the dive and try shooting manual, or use the other settings on your DSLR camera. Or maybe you want to use RAW, or experiment with shots. Try different shots or angles. Go to your garden. Go shoot your kids. With different kind of angles. Edit your own sequence. Try editing some shots together on your computer. Make a short film. Try and make your own short film. And then ask for help and feedback. So the more you do it, the more you will get better at it. It's not just all consuming. That's a problem I think with this YouTube generation. We learn so much. We're watching so many tutorials, learning all these things on YouTube and video, but we're not actually learning or applying because we're all consuming pero kulang sa application, kulang sa doing. So same for content creators, mga aspiring content creators and storytellers and filmmakers. I'm sure you've watched so many filmmaking tutorials or YouTube videos, but it's time for you to actually do it. Get up out of your chair and try mo mismo. Make a short film, and it'll be bad the first time. You'll probably suck. That's why make another one after that, and it'll be better. And another one after that. Same with YouTube. Like the success of YouTube is not having a few good videos at the start, but some say you really have to make 50 videos, 100 uploads, minsan, to finally get your groove into creating content on YouTube or on the internet. The best way is to keep doing, keep making, even if you're not ready. Go in more. Just start, dive in, grab a camera, press record, use your smartphone. All the tools are really there at our fingertips ngayon. Some time in our history, everything is so accessible. And to be a filmmaker now more than ever, it can really be a dream come true. We can really get there. For me, when I was a kid, kala ko pang astronaut lang yun. Ngayon, what's happening ngayon sa news? Normal people are going into space thanks to Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk. And so, dreams are becoming reality now. You can be a filmmaker. You can be an astronaut even. Who knows? So take the dive. Gawin natin. Learn by doing. And so, just lastly, if you're a filmmaker or content creator, make the most of this visual platform. Speak fluently the language of film and video, so you can say something to the world. Sayang, there's so much noise, so much chatter. Might as well say something that can help that can inspire, that can, you know, really contribute something to society. Kasi with thoughtful images and a passionate story, a visual storyteller can ultimately influence minds. It can change hearts and it can transform society. Parang teachers, di ba? Ganun din ang mga teachers, they can influence a whole generation, change their hearts and transform the next generation of society. I think all the more now, the teachers are mga visual storytellers. The teachers are content creators ngayon. The teachers are even influencers in a way, They're the ones that are kind of shaping yung modern world ngayon. And so, yun ang power ng visual stories. Aside, like, let's not waste it. Let's not waste it with garbage, crap. But like, let's tell some really meaningful and beautiful and powerful and uplifting stories. Para yung society din natin magiging ganun. Yun lang, yeah. That's the end of my lectures. Visual storytelling. Hopefully, learned a thing or two. But yeah, I'll hand it back to Killer Sir Hero, Sir JC. Yeah, if you want to find me on social media, I'm on YouTube, Ronald James Baculo, YouTube Ronald James Baculo or RJ Baculo. You can see a lot of my short films, documentaries, filmmaking tutorials, and mental health videos there as well.
Hey,
Cool.
Casey, are you still there?
Yeah, sobrang it's mind-boggling actually. I just watched some of your videos recently, and with everything that you said, itong lecture na to, it's really fascinating and mind-boggling na you can fit everything in short films or in your work. So I realized a lot of things, especially with storytelling, and not only just storytelling itself, yung in general, but more of um the compositions. Kasi usually kasi pag yung yun nga, yung cinematography grammar or jargon, 'di ba? Parang when you see a lot of YouTube tutorials or videos, they just explain um short parang short explanations of things. Pero with what RJ said, napaka ano niya ano man term doon? Napaka hindi mind-boggling more on parang it opened a lot of things for me, or it answered a lot of questions for me na uh, it would really help not just us but also other aspiring videographers or cinematographers or anyone that would want to tell a story using their phone or using their cameras. So yeah.
Thanks, AC. Yeah.
Actually, what I got from RJ's talk naman is that whatever platform you are into, whatever um form of art you're into, andun talaga yung process no? And that you can really not have any process when you want to do something, 'di ba? Whether it's photography, whether it's film, whether in teaching even, 'di ba? Lagi may process yan. And syempre, like what RJ said a while ago, na yun nga, there's this processes na you have to be familiar with first before you can break it down and create your own, 'di ba? And yun yung maganda doon kasi nga, 'di ba, and like in teaching, 'di ba, we often tell our faculty members and syempre the students na rin that there is such a thing as freedom of expression, freedom of teaching, 'di ba? Ito yung ways nila into teaching na despite that given ng syllabus, given ng course outline, it's still the teacher's prerogative, the teacher's way, 'di ba, na masusunod pa rin in the long run, 'di ba? So same goes, 'di ba? If you have this process na natutunan, 'di ba? We have different camera shots. We have yung mga tick list natin or parang bullet list natin into coming up with a good storyline or with a good story, 'di ba? Yung persuasive storyline, high quality visuals. Iisa-isahin natin talaga 'yun, 'di ba? And in a way, you can really adapt it to whatever work you are doing, 'di ba? So pwedeng sa photography, pwede mo rin ma-apply din 'yon kasi nga may proseso kang susundin muna, lalo na especially if you're starting out pa lang. And then later on, as you go about, as again mentioned by RJ, you really cannot learn anything unless you start doing it, 'di ba? So once you've been doing it for a while, 'di ba, you get to learn what works for you and what doesn't, 'di ba? So you can remove some of the parts ng process and maybe create your own and the long run, like dun sa SDE nga, 'di ba? So it's a template, yes, pero as the longer you do it, the more it becomes customized to a particular work, 'di ba? So kunya or a particular project, parang ganun. So nakakatuwa. And despite the very technical jargons that we just had, parang it's adaptable to a lot of ang tawag dito, careers and even work, kaya nakakatuwa. And hopefully even students, kids, um yun nga, who's planning to have a career on TikTok or as a content creator can arrive with a similar kahit pa paano motivation from this talk talaga. Kaya pero yun, nadudumog na ako ng maraming questions. Kaya mamaya na ako
Okay.
magdadagdag at baka wala na tayong time basahin lahat 'to at masagutan lahat pa. Kaya shall we start now? Masyadong marami na, eh. JC, I have a few questions siyempre for RJ, pero it would be better na we get to answer it na rin kasi these are again some questions were asked by students na para sa atin din. So might as well do our roundtable turn na rin. So let's start. We will start
Nice.
with RJ and then ako na lang muna siguro and then final ikaw kasi nga with Andrea nagsimula, ako yung dulo, eh, di ba? So this time ikaw
Let's
nang ano
switch it up.
para
Yeah.
yeah. Okay. So yeah, the first one is ito, these are questions from us coming daw ni JC to. So this is strictly for RJ muna. Um why are you a self-professed storyteller? So given that you have a background in multimedia, background in storytelling, pero why storytelling? 'Di ba? You're multifaceted pero yun nga, graphics design, 'di ba? Nasa literature, basically nasa literature ka rin with your comic book background. Bakit storytelling talaga ang pinaka-appeal or appealing for you? Aside from the ones you've mentioned earlier when you introduced yourself.
Why? Wow. I don't know. It's really natural. I don't know. I think lahat naman ng tao has that natural urge to tell stories, to share stories. Sa akin lang siguro, because of that background of multimedia, mas lalo na empower yung desire to tell a story. Mas na, I guess, it gave me a bigger voice to tell stories na I have personally or that I want to share to other people, like stories of mental health, mga ganun. But why? Yeah, I mean, the universe guided me in this direction or I mean, trial and error again as well. The last 10, 15 years, yung nag-ikot na din ako sa buhay ko and I keep coming back to this, to telling visual stories and seeing the results too, yung mga impact sa mga tao. I think that's what really pang validates why you want to keep doing it. Like no matter what it is you're doing, like for example, if you're a blog writer or maybe you're a content creator, when you receive feedback, positive feedback, or you see the impact on people, then parang all the more it validates to you and even encourages you to keep going at that. And so I guess hearing from different voices, different other people, and then feedback of other people and reactions and responses, I guess that all the more keeps me going in this direction of storytelling.
Okay, JC, ikaw na magtanong ng last question na gawa nating dalawa before we go to the Q&A ng mga students and those who are following us on our Facebook page.
Okay. So pinaka pinaka last question namin actually is 'di ba you've talked about like your thought process. So with with regards kasi to cinematography or yung cinematography industry in general kasi parang do you think um with our local industry yung mga aspiring cinematographers or like international photographers, like yung comparison nila, do you think we can be at par locally with western or other international films, like yung in the future, parang gano'n?
Ito in terms of films or in terms of cinematography lang? In
um
terms of kwento, films,
yeah,
the
yeah,
product?
yes,
Yeah, yeah. Wow. Yeah, definitely. I think sometimes kasi 'di ba yung parang complain ng industry natin or people like, oh, walang budget, walang support, and it ends up becoming an excuse, not the reason, but an excuse why we shoot ourselves down. Oh, hindi tayo successful in the like international scene. But if you look at like movies like Parasite from Korea or a lot of other movies na no budget, it's just really good, creative, engaging stories na may cultural aspect, like in terms of Parasite, maybe it has some Korean cultural elements and dami mga K-drama dyan series na a lot of cultural aspects that we love to see, we love to digest, mga Filipino. And, it doesn't take a big budget to tell these stories, but the whole world is enthralled by this. They love these stories. Same thing sa atin. I think if we stop imitating other people's voices, if we stop trying to be American or Hollywood or rom-com or even Korean novela, if we really parang i-lean in natin yung sa sariling boses natin, yung sariling style natin, like a great example, yung great parang shedding of the light moment, yung paglabas ng 13 sa Netflix. Like that animation series, like now, wow, it's a really big deal. We can't underestimate the impact of having 13, a Filipino intellectual property and story that's really ours, not just from the makers, but the content itself is very Filipino. Our mythology, our mga folklore stories natin, and then on a world platform and being received warmly even by a global audience because it's our flavor, it's our stories, it's our like sige, the animation quality is not up there like anime or it's not up there as like yung mga ibang successful like animations, pero yung yung mga kwento natin, yung mythology natin, that's what's really appealing in that case. And so that becomes our export sa world. Kung sa mga Koreano, yung export nila is, that certain brand of music, that certain brand of the dramatic, romantic storytelling. Ano naman yung flavor natin na gusto natin ipalabas sa world. If we embrace that, then I think that's when we can really, start leveling up with, the global audience, the other films, not by becoming like them, but becoming even more like our own selves, being embracing yung mga unique kwento lang sa atin, unique boses lang sa atin, even kahit yung corniness natin, very Filipino, why not embrace that? Or we have so many things as well in our culture lang na sayang kasi kung hindi, there's a saying like if you don't tell your story, someone else will. And that's what's happening. You're getting foreigners, Hollywood movies showing artists action and in their martial arts films and Hollywood movies, like so everyone is taking our culture na and putting it in their movies. And so sayang, like nasa atin na yun. And like let's be the ones to tell it. Let's be the ones to show it. I think yun. If we can learn to really embrace that, then we can be on par, on level with these other not on that comparable. It's not the quality. It doesn't have to be ka-levels of production quality, but the storytelling quality, and then that, that even that value, that cultural value aspect na makaka-level din tayo dun. Yeah. That's for me. It's my observation. But yung nga lang, in our industry, it's self-feeding. So we rely on before the pandemic, ticket sales. So gumagawa lang ng mga studios safe rom-coms, safe horror movies na medyo cookie cutter, medyo templated, pero the ordinary people are willing to pay for it. And kaya nag-feed yun na, okay, gawa natin more of this. Kaya, end of year, December, Metro Manila Film Fest, you have those types of movies rather than bold, original or creative kind of indie type movies. And so, sayang. If only, so it's in a way, nasa tao din, the audience, they have that power by watching or supporting more stories at the box, then it empowers the industry, studios, and filmmakers to make more stories like that. Otherwise, kung yung voting power natin nasa ticket sales, if we keep buying movies, foreign Hollywood movies, nasa SN Tile, or we'll pay for this Hollywood movie instead of the Filipino movie that's coming out, then mas na disempower tayo ang industry natin, ang filmmakers natin. Yun lang. My reservation.
Your takeaways ko doon, JC, is una, imitation. Very, ayan, hindi nawawala sa industry natin to imitate what's currently in, diba? Whether it came from a Western country or another Asian country, laging gagayahin ng mga Pilipino. So, isa yun. Sunod is, yun nga, sadly, our industry is really still profit-oriented, di ba? So, where the money is coming from, yun yung talaga yung nagge-generate, and yun talaga yung parang nag-i-influence doon sa mga creative ideas na parang walang creative ideas, or there is a lack of creative ideas kasi habol lang kung what's selling, di ba? Kung ano lang yung bumibenta. Hence people, or hence production companies, I think, doesn't even bother trying, di ba? So yun yung medyo nakakalungkot na aspeto
And
doon. At
sayang,
yeah,
kasi world-class tayo. Like, I mean, si John Arcilla just won Best Actor. My
true,
God,
di ba?
world-class na nga tayo. Like, so we should really manifest that na talaga as a nation.
But doesn't that make you infuriated or pissed off? Kasi nga we have really good talents here, pero we're stuck on a rut, 'di ba? Syempre ikaw
Yeah.
coming from the industry ka talaga. So parang hindi ka ba na bad trip, or parang
Oo
nasasayangan?
ganun nga, yeah. It's before, nung nakatira pa ako sa Australia, when I was studying multimedia and film, ganun din sabi ng mga industry at that time. That was yung early 2000s, mid 2000s, yung industry sa Australia, film industry, ganun din where we are now. Parang safe films lang, not creative. And then yung if you really want to make it big, talaga kailangan ka mag-abroad sa States. So, si James Wan, director of all these very successful movies like Conjuring, yung mga Aquaman, taga Melbourne yun, kababayan ko lang yun. And yung mga ideas niya na-reject ng Australian film industry. So, pumunta siya sa Hollywood. Doon siya natanggap. And then sayang, so he made Saw. Saw was his first movie. It should have been an Australian movie. Ayaw ng Australiano or Australian industry. He took it there and it became a successful series. So, we have a chance. I think may pag-asa naman. It's nakaka-dismayo, but eventually the Australian film industry, it was able to get out of that rut maybe 10 years after. Like sa atin, I think now we're getting some kind of mga stepping stones there. I think we can and will get out of this rut.
Around 20 years, Kung Australia kasi is 10, tayo malamang 20 na. I'm just kidding. Okay, let's start with the Q&A. These are questions given by my students from National University and some from our Facebook page. Okay, the first one, again si JC, and then ako, and then last DC. Tama ba? Tama ba yung order, JC? You would be the last one?
Yung last.
Oo, tama. Okay.
Yes.
So the first question is, if you are this one camera technique, whether camera angle, movement, or shot, what will you be and why? Pang beauty pageant yung kind of question. Pero yeah, sige, interesting na rin eh.
Oh, wow. I think, this is for me ba to? Question is for me?
All of us, pero ikaw yung una.
Ako muna.
Yeah.
I think camera angle. I think lahat naman is perspective. Sa buhay natin, the way you look at everything. So it depends on the angle, the way you reframe something, the way you see something. ang importante para sa akin. So, I would be a camera angle kasi, yeah, I would frame something the way I would like to see it or I want others to see it as.
Akin, to be more specific, siguro Dolly. Dali para mas immersive yung mas immersive yung storytelling, and in a way, I guess reflect it with my personality. Mas gusto ko, mas nakaka-relate ako sa tao, whether I'm doing this for fun or I'm teaching or I'm ayan siya kahit paano communicate with the other people. Mas gusto ko yung parang medyo personal touch, ika nga, and I can feel that with every dolly shots that I find online, or that I see whenever I watch films, eh. So para sa akin, Dolly. Mm. How about you, JC?
Actually, at first, parang first thing that comes to mind para sa akin kasi when it comes to yung mga ganyan is more on yung mga depth of field, yung mga medyo mga bokeh shots, like yung mga camera angles, 'di ba? Pero mas naglilin ako after na tong lecture. I'm also actually going for Dolly kasi parang
Oh,
I like
Nice.
the I like the ins and outs. Yung parang it gives perspectives kasi na if you want to know a person, diba, you move closer. If you don't want to or if you want to distance yourself from that person, you go away. So parang it gives you
Nice.
that emotion or it gives you that feeling when it comes to storytelling or when it comes to real life situation for that matter. So kung gusto mo kung may interest ka, you go in, 'di ba? You dive in. If you don't want if it doesn't pique your interest, you go out, you distance yourself. So I think para sa akin with how I think things or with yung pinaka perspective ko with things, especially with videography, photography, cinematography, um para akong Dolly. So I really go in when I want to do something or when it piques my interest. I distance myself out if I don't want it or if it's something that it's not my cup of tea. Parang ganun.
Nice.
nakakatuwa
All in,
kasi
all in. Nice.
same shot, or basically same camera shot, pero different interpretation, no?
Ah, ah.
Okay, that's great, ah. Next, what specific film inspires you when it comes to visual storytelling and cinematography? So I guess dalawa, isang film that inspires you with its storytelling, and another film with its cinematography, I guess.
Wow. The first part siguro, I mentioned it earlier, yung Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless
Yeah.
Mind,
Mhm.
directed by Michel Gondry. Kasi yung buong kwento, it's backwards. The narrative is in reverse. So sa una, na-erase yung memories tao, and then pabalik, makita mo yung the ugliness of the relationship hanggang dumating tayo sa beginning ng relationship na it was so beautiful. Then doon na sa second thoughts na ayoko sana i-erase, pero it's too late. So but ang sa filmmaking nung kasi it was so very low tech, low-fi yung paggawa. Very in camera yung mga effects. They even use like forced perspective sa mga props para to make a person smaller. They use bigger tables or bigger props. Very creative, out of the box. Yung director na yun, si Michel Gondry, French. Marami siyang mga music videos, ganun din. Very weird and out of the box. And that really inspired me when I watched it as a college student. Na like, it's not about expensive effects or expensive gear. It's just being really creative and innovative with what you can do with what you have. So that really inspired me, that film, in that particular aspect. In terms of cinematography, there's this one movie. It's not very, I don't hear too many people talk about, but it's called Comet. It's a romantic comedy starring Justin Long and yung bida sa Phantom of the Opera, yung girl there. But it's a love story that takes place in like 6 alternate Earths, so 6 alternate dimensions. So parang 6 versions of the love story. Pero yung cinematography kasi dun, parang actually it's the same filmmaker yung gumawa ng Mr. Robot TV series. So the same style yung cinematography. It's very off, it's not rule of third. It's really talagang anti-rule of thirds, but it's done in a very beautiful way. And it's hard to explain, but I guess in a narrative way, it's to show yung otherworldliness kasi stories happening on parallel universes. So maybe that's why they chose to do that. But when you watch like a reel of that, the cinematography reel, it's so beautiful to watch to see that kind of cinematography na iba, hindi common na ano. Yeah, yun lang, yeah. Those two films. Sa akin.
What's the one for cinematography? Comet?
It's called Comet, yeah. Comet. Oh, Comet.
Ah,
Yeah.
sana meron sa
Very underrated
Netflix.
nga, underrated.
Mine would be for visual storytelling. Mine would have to be Vantage Point. It's by Dennis Quaid, Whitman. I forgot the other celebrities. It's just about this terrorist bombing, pero told through different perspectives. So, yun yung gusto ko, simple story ano eh. Terrorist
I think
attack.
I know that. Yung ba
Yeah.
yung
Sa
nasa
Spain.
gitna ng
Some,
meeting or ay ano
Oo,
to doon?
oo.
Parang
yeah.
may ano to what you call that? Parang
From
swamp type of
residential,
thing.
ano,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Mm,
yeah.
mm, mm.
Tama, I like that.
Sobrang
So
simple, 'di ba? Bare bones storyline, pero yung manner of telling the story, nag-unravel lalo yung story depending on how the characters perspective, 'di ba? Hanggang sa nabuo yung
yes.
storya, and
Oo.
then syempre yung ending na ayoko na mag-spoil pero nakakatuwa lang. And
Which was
it's
yung napaka-short nung timeline in real life, 'di ba?
yeah,
Parang
oo,
it
sobra,
would
'di
take you
ba?
siguro mga 30 minutes yung lahat ng happening.
Yeah,
Pero
oo.
you had to put it in different perspectives na it became really
Yeah.
interesting to the audience, 'di ba?
I feel like I was reading a novel. Yung parang the more I go deeper sa pages, parang gano'n na unravel. Tapos pagdating sa dulo, parang I'm really invested with these characters. Tapos parang yun, nung natapos parang nakakapagod and at the same time, very fulfilling. Kaya I want that kind of effect when it goes to storytelling, whether I'm doing photography, whether I'm doing film, which is I rarely do film kasi medyo hindi kaya ng powers ko ngayon. Pero yun nga, gusto ko ganun yung maging epekto nung photos ko, nung articles ko, and yun, parang yun yung nakaka-inspire whenever I think of coming up with a story or coming up with a project. For cinematography, mababaw rin, Behind Enemy Lines. Tama ba? Yeah, it's by Owen Wilson. Tama ba yun? Yung medyo
Ah,
broken yung
yeah, yeah.
nose. I'm not a fan of war films. Hindi ako mahilig. Ano kay Tom Cruise? Hindi ako mahilig doon. I watched it, tapos parang, eh. Pero when I watched Behind Enemy Lines, tapos comedian pa si Owen Wilson, di ba? Pero that's the only time that I appreciated war films, and at the same time I appreciated shaky cams. Yung parang kahit paano it immersed me na parang I was there with him, parang we are getting bombed, we are getting shot by I forgot kung ano yung nationality nung kalaban eh. Pero yun nga, parang with the shaky cams, it was used effectively. Unlike para sa akin yung Blair Witch Project, it's groundbreaking, pero hindi ako na-immerse talaga, o siguro hindi lang talaga ako natakot. Pero with Behind Enemy Lines, parang I really felt that I was there, parang running for my life, getting shot at. Kasi yung shaky cams parang mas nagamit ng tama para sa akin. So, I guess, what was that? Vantage Point and Behind Anime Lines, yung medyo naka-peak nung attention ko when it comes to cinematography and when it comes to storytelling. JC, your turn. Huwag mo ko gagayahin.
Actually, yung part lang na pareho tayo is I'm not really when it comes to inspiration, I'm not really a fan of war movies or films. Parang war movies and films are parang for me to be entertained or for yung parang to enjoy the whole experience. Pero when it comes to having inspiration with film and cinematography, um kasi I have a soft spot with um yung mga films that have inspiring stories or motivational stories, diba? Or anything na would tell a story na other people can relate. Or other people can relate rather. So para sa akin, I would go with I'm into musicals. So the first musical that I watched ng full Rent, the musical. So that's my favorite film. Kasi maganda yung sequence ng character development. It's not just na this is the main character. They are all main characters and they can support parang hindi yung isang main character and then one supporting cast. Parang lahat sila may different story perspectives na nagiging I am the main character now, but I can be a supporting character after na ikaw yung main character. Parang gano'n. So, it shifts the story development but it doesn't split it na napaka-irrelevant niya. Parang I like how the the scene goes. I like how the content goes from start to finish. Eventually sa ending kasi ang dami, may mga different walks of life sila na may LGBTQ, merong someone that's going through a lot of things. Tapos there's this guy, si Tay Diggs. He parang he forgot where he came from, naging mayaman siya, naging alam mo yun, parang naging sakim. There are different walks of life na all in lahat nag-connect in the end. Parang I like that kind of storytelling or I like that kind of film na lahat nagsha-shine or merong something na meron kang mapupulot. Then you have something to learn from it. Yun pala. And cinematography, simple kind of guy lang rin ako eh. I just like yung parang ghost perspective. Yung parang what if you pass away and then you want to see lives of people, parang gano'n. Parang I want to be in that spot, whether yung mga struggling na tao, I want to see them shine, yung mga gano'n. Yung I just want to look at other people's lives, not in a creepy way, not in a stalkerish way or anything, pero something to, inspire you or something to motivate you to continue with life or something to be sentimental or be happy, ganyan. Pursuit of Happiness, Will Smith. I really like how what's his name? Chris Gardner, yung homeless guy that became a billionaire because he wanted to make his son happy, diba? Parang he wanted to not struggle anymore. So yung the fact that he's a living proof of yung rags to riches and how he struggled with things but didn't didn't care na he would falter or yung parang wala siyang demotivation. That's something that I like with cinematography, yung storytelling na eventually you'll have a situation that na mag-struggle ka, you want to end your life, you want to, stay depressed or you want to just be demotivated for the rest of your life. Pero there's this guy na who is having or who had the same experience as you pero he overcame it. So parang I like those types of cinematography and storytelling. Yung parang it goes hand in hand na it yung mga cinematography or yung films na give you it gives you chills na or it makes you realize things in a way na hindi mo na-realize in real life. So sobrang gusto ko yung movie na yun. Siguro mga 10 or 20 times ko na ata napanood yun just to, get motivation for yung interest ko, yung hobbies ko, or in real life. In real life situations. Kasi napakaganda niya eh. The storytelling is real. You see a lot of those kinds of stories overseas or kahit dito. Yung mga ganun eh. Rags to riches, yung mga 1 week billionaire or something. Yung mga ganun. So I really like those kinds of cinematography. So it's Rent and Pursuit of Happiness for me.
Gatang hindi mo talaga gusto yung Pursuit of Happiness, pre, kung 20 times mo na napanood.
Oo, hindi ko naman gusto yan.
Walang kahilig-hilig. Next, although hindi medyo hard turn siya kasi hindi connected. Like how crane shots are slowly being replaced by drone shots, what is that one camera technique that you are willing to remove or willing to forget about and why? Ito medyo technical lang talaga. Ano yung isang camera technique na kaya nyong kalimutan o hindi gamitin entirely? So this goes whether for photography or for film. Okay, RJ, ikaw muna.
Yeah. Like personal, like hindi ko na kailangan, hindi ko na gagamitin,
Mm,
parang
mm.
ganun. Hmm. Well, personally, I don't own a drone. The times that I've used it, like, lang, whatever, but I think I can forego aerial shots or drone shot. I mean, ngayon, the last 10 years, like, I noticed nga, sa kahit sa mga Hollywood films, indie films, marami na mga drone shots talaga. Before, kailangan may helicopter, mag-hire ka ng helicopter para may camera lang to get, like, yung shot sa bundok or sa road, sa highway. But I think that's one shot I could sacrifice and not use, and I think I can still tell a story. Walang aerial shot or that kind of above shot.
Mine, Inception shot. Yun yung nagdadali in tapos nag-rotate.
I was thinking that too, actually.
For that movie, oo, okay, bagay siya. Pero again after that film, yun, maraming contents, music videos, puro yung mga gimmicks sa YouTube. Nakikita ko
That's
parang
true.
masyadong hindi naman applicable. Kaya parang naging hard sell para sa ano na yun, sa content na yun na parang Inception siya tapos hindi naman bagay. So parang ganun, parang kaya alam mo yung effect dapat ng Inception shots para sa akin nawala yung ano, yung big deal niya para sa akin eh. Kaya I guess sa lahat ng shots na ano, kaya nating gawin, Inception shot yung yung kaya kong kalimutan or totally I can live without talaga.
Tama yun.
JC, how about you?
um, Meron akong love-hate relationship sa shaky action scenes. Yung techniques, yung parang sa yung Born trilogy. Di ba may mga
Ah,
Oh,
ganong
yeah.
scenes na I like it if you're on an audience perspective. Kasi nandun ka eh. Pero
mm.
if you're on a storytelling perspective, you'd want you'd want to show the audience na clear, parang a clear picture of what's happening eh. So, I'd take nasa ano siya, nasa bottom of my list eh. Like anything that I can think of within my thought process, that will be the last in my ano ba, in my arsenal. So yung thought process ko, I'd live without yung shaky Born trilogy like action scenes or action techniques parang ganun.
Nice. Tama ka, Jason. I just want to add something there. Like, I remember I made a short film. Like, around that time din, sumisikat yung mga Bourne films. Hindi naman action films, like a drama film. Pero I did like shaky cam, pang documentary style. And then nag-critic talaga yung isang mentor ko na like, like, you should aim for more classical. Kasi right now, like, it's a fad lang. Ngayon, uso. But then, like, what, 10 years, 20 years from this, it won't be, like, you should aim for more like a timeless type style of filmmaking daw. Sabi sa akin.
Actually, may point ko dun kasi not all people would really be comfortable with the shaky technique eh. Kasi baka mamaya you'd give migraines to your audiences. So parang ang hirap nun. You want to have someone na can digest it in a classic way. Or yung pinaka traditional way na seeing eye view, bird's eye view, yung ganun. Kasi they would
Mm.
digest it more rather than having headaches. Tapos parang hindi ko na maintindihan yung story because of the shaky part pala. Yeah.
Nice. Oh, isa pa, can I just add something else, JC?
Sure.
Parang the flip side of that naman, yung ngayon nakikita ko sobrang gimbal shots naman.
Gimbal, yeah.
I see less tripod shots, less framing shots, lahat ikot na lang or
Handheld na.
yeah. So wala nang plano sa kung saan mo ipa-place yung camera kasi pwede ka na gumalaw kahit saan. Like,
Yeah.
medyo nasobra ako dun.
Okay. This one is specifically for JC and RJ. Ako, hindi na ako sasagot dito kasi I hardly do videos na recently.
Uh-uh.
So, first um, is manual focus better shooting film or video or autofocus? So, MF versus AF siguro na lens shooting video.
I think for narrative, definitely go for manual. Kasi very intentional. You're creating a story na kontrolado mo yung pag ano ng kwento. Like, so, you know, you can control that. Of course, it looks pleasing if you have manual control and you do your own bokeh and mga blurred out effects. Pero at the same time, yung mga focus pulls, like focusing on the subject and switching to another subject or something like that, you'd want, yeah, more of that control. Before talaga, like 10 years ago, 20 years ago, or 10 years ago, the filmmakers really look down on autofocus. Kasi, you know, like all filmmakers, you go manual focus. Pero ngayon, the technology is actually pretty good na. Yung autofocus sa mga uh, Fujifilm, Sony camera, Canon, they're actually really, really good ngayon with eye focus, yung naglalakin sa mata and sa face. And so, it's getting there. It's getting better. Before, you'd have the danger of baka ma-autofocus yung shot mo, masisira yung shot, kaya manual is always the way to go. But I mean, if you're doing a documentary, I think okay then yung auto. I think you can at least it's more safe. You're in control of the moment kasi live yung kinakuha mo. You might not be able to have a take two. But if you're in a narrative scenario, then you can take multiple shots naman. You can do a take two, take three. Yeah, go manual. And then I guess from a consumer point of view, manual lens are definitely cheaper than autofocus lens. So
Yep.
it's a good way to hone your skills as well. You know, you're not relying on camera AI or ano, tayo, galing sa'yo talaga yung kontrolado. Like you're controlling the creativity of your shots nasa ano mo mismo. Manual focus in that case. So. Yeah, manual focus. Yeah, go for it.
Okay. For me, actually, yung manual focus versus autofocus kasi it's like, um, it's kind of related to our last episode, improvisations versus templates. Kasi parang autofocus kasi napaka-templated na niya na hahanapin niya yung whichever is more contrasty, 'di ba? Parang that's your autofocus is there if you're doing something na like yung documentaries or something na hindi ganun kahirap i-focus kasi nga there are some disadvantages like getting out of focus or something that you don't want to focus is being focused yung ganon. So manual focus comes in to create your vision kasi you can't talk to your camera and say focus on this kahit sabihin natin there are touchscreen capabilities na you'd want to focus on this if the camera tells you na it's not contrasty enough so I'm not gonna focus on that, diba? Manual focus is there to help you out. Parang it's kind of like your buddy or backup na, oy bro, ako na. Parang, so you have to have pa rin um, manual focus as your, paano ba? Depende kasi, ano siya, case-to-case basis eh. You can use manual focus as your main or AF as your backup or other way around eh. Um, me and my girlfriend a couple of months ago, we made this short documentary. Not really a documentary. Para siyang just to promote our friend's product. Yung mga, ano to? Shampoo bars, ganyan. So we made a documentary for her. Like how is it good for the environment, all of that. So we use manual focus. Kasi nung time na yun, we use different types of cameras. May mobile phone, may full frame, tapos may mirrorless. So sa akin yung manual, sa girlfriend ko yung autofocus na medyo malapit. And then there's a mobile phone for yung mga parang prison type na view. Yung, 'di ba, yung mga interrogation type of stuff. 'Di ba, yung mga ganong camera angle. So we made those types of angles. Pero pinaka main namin is manual kasi we'd want to shift sometimes view. Maganda kasi yung may certain out of focus na moments eh, 'di ba? Especially with products na if you're focusing on one product from the foreground and another one from the background, you have full freedom to use manual focus. So, ang gamit ko noong time na yun, mga vintage lenses pa, mga Minolta, MD Rocker pa na 1.4, 50mm. So, I've gusto ko both um both techniques or both setups depending talaga on what you're shooting. Like what RJ said na narratives, it's really good to use manual kasi may 'di ba may mga part ano merong situations in life na you look at a person na malapit and then you look at a person na malayo. So manual focus gives that experience, that surreal experience na autofocus eh. Parang you're looking first at the main character and then you look at the background na parang yung background sunog na bahay or something na parang diba may mga scene na ganun eh na parang anong ginawa mo sa bahay mo? And then you focus first on the main character and then yung bahay mo na nasusunog after. So manual focus gives you that narrative feeling na napakaganda. So autofocus kasi it's good really for like yung mga stills, mga documentaries siguro or something that you want to focus na matagalan. Parang gano'n. So case-to-case basis talaga.
Sana lang clickless aperture yung gamit, di ba? So, ano.
Oh, yeah, yun nga.
Okay, this one, more specifically toward RJ. The first one is, nasagot na kasi namin to ni JC before. First is, what was it? Where was it? Yun. What camera or camera phone do you use in your videos and why?
Yan.
What camera and camera phone? Okay.
Or camera phones.
Yeah. The camera I'm using ngayon is just a Sony mirrorless A6500, A65,000. And then on my phone, I use right now I have a Samsung S10. But I use a professional, yung smartphone filmmaking app, yung Filmic Pro.
Yeah.
Or actually, there's a few. May isa pa, MC Pro 24 FPS.
I saw your video ng ganun.
Yeah, it's very bag, hindi pa ganong kilala. And it's only for Android, but very masterfully yung mga color profiles and yung manual controls, like sobrang detale yung amount of control you can have on your smartphone. But yeah, and then sometimes I borrow my wife's iPhone. Hindi talaga ako Apple iPhone, but every now and then, like, I might have to use maganda talaga. I have to admit, maganda yung imaging ng mga iPhone. So sometimes I'll borrow my wife's iPhone and yeah. But otherwise, I mean, I don't have the latest like flagship phone or Samsung, but I mean, I want to demonstrate too, like by example, na you can make a quality film with any phone, like anong phone that you have, and it's just really like again the mastery of the like say exposure or the visual language. Yun ang magdadala ng like kwento mo, whatever, not the latest sensor or the latest like cinematic mode feature or whatever. Yeah.
Okay. Follow up. What is that? What is your setup shooting your videos? Your tools, preparations, or crew count? If ever you are shooting with someone.
This is for short film, not for content. Short film. Yeah, usually, good 4 or 5, at least crew. Yeah, sa akin, I have like pang last few short films I made, talagang regular yung mga collaborators ko. Kilala ko na sila, yung when you're on that parang level na, parang psychic communication na. Like, like you can rely on that person to do his job, you can rely on this person to do that job. Yung parang as the director, you don't have to worry about yung mga ibang detalye kasi tuwala mo na, kilala mo na yung tao na yun. So, yeah, the last few talaga is like 4 or 5 crew na isa talaga sa like production design, set design, and then I really need like at least an assistant or a runner kind of assistant director to just kind of get my head around the shoot and the schedule. But the last film I made, the very last film, solo, one man. It was lockdown. I couldn't go out, so I just did everything like on my own and on a phone. I used the iPhone, but then I also like I could monitor on my 3-year-old daughter's ko yung iPad niya. Ginamit ko yun as a monitor, so I can frame myself using the iPhone, naka tripod, naka set, so I can record remotely and then do that for every scene and every shot. Kahit sarili ko lang, one crew, one actor, walang But generally, yeah, mga a good, yeah, five, six, just a handful. One time I made a zombie film. Ay, ayun, marami talaga ang crew noon just for like handling large crowds of mga mga bata na mga zombies and just the makeup and feeding everybody, crowd control and so. But otherwise, usually, yeah, five or six people is a good amount for me. Yeah.
The 5 to 6 setup, how many actually attend or at least are familiar with the actual storyboard or show treatment nyo?
All of them. Dapat,
All of
yeah.
them.
Yeah,
Okay.
on page, yeah. If anything, yun nga, very yung mga meetings talaga beforehand, very crucial. Like, kahit sa story development stage, like, I gusto ko talaga, like, go to a cafe and talagang share natin lahat ng ideas natin, brainstorm natin, and then, at the same time, parang lahat kayo, like, kahit isa lang yung director, but everybody is contributing to the story, everybody is contributing to that film in a, not just their specific role lang. So parang, yung sense and feeling that you're really building something together, you're building a house together. And I like, gusto ko yung collaborative aspect na yun na, I want others to, it's not just a singular vision. Gusto ko ever din mag-contribute o mag-suggest, That's what I like.
Okay, this will go for all of us dito sa what is that one rule do you often break and why or what for? I guess when this person or when the student mentioned the rule, I think it's the rule that RJ mentioned in his lecture. So ano yung rule na i-break or willing kayong i-break or usually nating bini-break? Well, if it's either of the elements of the film, whether it's part of our camera techniques or visual storytelling, ano yung usual nating binibreak na rule at bakit?
Okay. Ako ito, I just realized hindsight na could hindi conscious before, but the rule I love to break or is breaking the fourth wall. For those who don't know, breaking the fourth wall, that's when yung nakatingin, yung the
Yeah.
character is
Deadpool
looking
style.
at the camera, is like looking at the audience. And then usually, that breaks the reality of the film. Like parang, bakit tumitingin sa akin?
Oo nga.
But when I use it, I want it to be like that character or that moment or that message is directing at you so that you can like take action or you can feel that that kind of moment or that kind of I noticed I've done it a few times. I don't think hindi ko na sinasadya, but somehow it turns up in a lot of my short films, breaking that fourth wall. Yung mga Deadpool, that of course used it notoriously.
Ang isang rule na commonly kong ginagawa or binibreak is deviating from my storyboard or my show treatment. I'm a stickler for for rules, for guides. Lalo syempre when I teach students to do this first, ito yung first step mo, ito yung second step mo. Tapos pagdating sa shooting is well I'm one of the first few people that deviates sa rules na sinet ko mismo. I don't know why. I just like reading the rules and applying or ano bang tawag dito? Giving them out. Pero pag ako mismo, I'm one of the first few people who break them eh. Kaya, well, yeah. Yun, guilty ako dun. How about you, JC?
Recently na na-realize ko din kasi before when I started doing photography kasi everybody everybody tells you na you have to follow the rule of thirds. Syempre, that's a basic thing, 'di ba? When it comes to photography and videography, cinematography at the same time. So, noong una I've been doing the rule of thirds kasi nga napaka-cinematic niya and all. And then like what RJ mentioned kanina sa slide, I also I discovered Wes Anderson accidentally like a month ago kasi I was finding for Lightroom presets. Yeah, diba yung mga Lightroom presets na you have the cinematic, moody feels, and then there's this section na Wes Anderson type. And then he explained Wes Anderson's yung mga films niya, especially yung mga tilt tapos nasa gitna yung subject. 'Di ba? May mga ganun. Straight lang yung sa subject. So, yeah, exactly. So, when I watch the whole thing, yung preset tutorial and yung thought process bakit, I realized na okay, so I've been doing some of some of this type of yung ganyang technique or yung ganyang idea sa mga shots ko. Especially when nung nagsa-start ako, puro mga bokeh shots eh. Puro mga pang portrait shots, ganyan. Pero nung nag-street photography ako, when I used my 50mm a couple of weeks ago sa Makati, some of my shots na nakatalikod yung tao. Kasi I want to portray different walks of life na they're just walking straight lang. Pero nasa likod ako. So I want to portray them na nasa gitna sila as if you're looking at them straight sa center nung view mo. And then when I realized that, parang okay, so nakuha ko yung ganong technique or yung nakuha ko yung ganong approach from the rule of thirds and breaking them and getting inspiration from guys like Wes Anderson na ang ganda ng view eh. It's like you're looking, di ba parang pag nag-aaway kayo ng friend mo, minsan yung away nyo eye to eye, tas nasa center. Parang ganun yung gusto ko mangyari when it comes to storytelling or um, portraying other people's lives na they're walking, parang ito yung mga nakikita mo usually sa mga tao, straight at the center, di ba? Parang ganun. So, I think that's yun yung pinaka rule na na-break ko and I'm still using it in my arsenal. Parang ganun. In my thought process or in my approach.
Nice.
Ay, nakamute ka, sir.
Yan. Sorry. I'm looking for the last, if ever there are any, kung may last question pa. Ito, what is that one worst experience in shooting film or content, I guess? One worst experience. Pinakapangit na lang, I guess.
Di ba kasi JC mo na? Baka meron ka iisip. Ano to man?
Kung cinematography or videography,
Kahit ano, kahit ano.
I only had one issue, especially na yung 'di ba pag if you're using mirrorless cameras kasi there are some mirrorless cameras na naglo-lowbat, 'di ba? Yung nag-overheat, so ganyan. Diba? So may mga times na especially lately ko lang nalaman na yung it really depends on yung sa shutter speeds. Kasi usually pag sa cinematography, yung mga as for me, yung mga basic na una ko nakikita if you want to have a cinematic 24 FPS feel, yung mga shutter speed na 110, 150, ganyan-ganyan. That moment nun, hindi ko alam yon. So my shutter speed was like, basta sobrang bright niya. Hindi naman sobrang bright, pero parang outside yung norms na
Parang ito, ayan.
medyo ganyan. Siguro mga 1/80th of a
Ayan.
second. Kasi naka 50mm ako eh. Medyo ganyan. Para lang kasi basta parang ayoko ko siya kasi na underexposed kasi hindi ko alam if I can edit or if I can post-process it kasi hindi pa naman ako magaling ng time na yun eh. I shot the documentary ng 1/80th or 1/70th of a second. The medyo bright siya. Tapos, syempre ikaw na habang nagsasalita yung sa documentary, just watch you just watch the camera tapos kuwari onting break ka lang, inom ka ng tubig. Hindi ko alam na like 10 or 20 minutes siyang naka-off na.
Ooh. Okay.
So parang doon ko lang na-realize na okay, wala akong main, hindi ko alam if that part is one of the important parts of the documentary. Kasi maganda yung angle na neutral eye, na yung eye view lang eh, 'di ba? So medyo na-stress ako for a bit, pero buti na lang yung phone ko which is a Poco X3, ang tagal niyang naka-on lang and it gave me a good angle. Maganda nga actually, it was a blessing kasi yung angle na yun, yung sabi ko it looks like a prison shot. Yung mga parang ano man tawag doon, yung maganda yung eye view na parang documentary na fields, yung mga old school VHS type of documentaries. Buti na lang it recorded the important parts. It recorded that crucial part na mukha siyang cinematic prison type or parang napaka old school na documentary. So I think yung part na yun yung pinaka worst ko so far kasi wala pa naman akong experience talaga with cinematography. Siguro mga 3 or 4 videos lang pero yung the rest yung videos kasi in a controllable environment. Yung pwede ka lang mag-shoot, pwede ka mag-second take. Yung documentary kasi na yun, I can't just say to the speaker na pakiulit kasi namatay yung camera eh, di ba? That would
Yeah.
be something na baka ma-off siya eh. So, buti na lang we had backups. Yung girlfriend ko, she was using a Nikon D3200 which is para siyang nasa side view. Maganda nga yung 180. It made me realize na maganda rin yung ginawa naming thought process na nasa side siya. Kasi yung nasa side siya, it showcases yung products when the speaker is showing each of the products. Tapos yung main cam is the documentary type eye view. And yung phone ko kasi was supposedly just a backup for yung old school video type na sa side siya. So, yun, that's the worst experience or worst situation that I've been in so far.
Was that commissioned or free project siya or what?
Supposed to be a free project, pero they gave us something which I was really, or which me and my girlfriend, were really, we're really grateful for the experience. Kaya nga, nung time na yun, we wanted to do more na kahit alam mo yun, parang anything you can give us, pang samgyup ba or anything na alam mo yun, parang just to embrace the experience kasi maganda eh. It was a good first experience. That was actually our first time na we shot na yung video talaga with a thought process yung with the yung setup talaga kasi yung ibang shots na ginawa ko lang yung sa sister ko lang, some short cinematic videos lang or pag nasa bahay lang when cooking something, yung ganun. So that was our first, I guess you could say, gig. Kasi namin siya close friend, office friend before. So we wanted to do something for her business, yung mga shampoo bars, yung ganun.
I would have to go first muna RJ para at least save the best for last. Kasi
Save
akin
the best
maikli
for
lang.
last.
Akin back in college kasi yun talaga yung parang talagang daily nag-shoot kami ng video. I guess pinaka worst experience ko lang is that you go to the battlefield na thinking you're all on the same page pero hindi pala. Ay parang nag-discuss na kayo storyboard, nag-discuss kayo show treatment, and ayun, akala mo na lang ang magiging problem nyo lang yung typical na sunlight, yung talents nyo. Pero ang problem is when you go to your location, kasi iba yung view or iba yung gustong ma-achieve ng mga kasama mo, lalo na if it's a group project. Yun yung mga pet peeve ko dati, that made yun, shooting film or shooting a video hellish for me back then. Kaya yun, I hardly collaborate with anyone whenever I do my projects or videos. Ako na lang. Kasi parang nakakadala. Alam mo yung parang okay na, akala ko okay na tayo, tapos biglang parang nag-shoot na tayo, tapos we were actually paying for our talents. College students pa lang kami na, tapos nagbabayad na kami ng mga talents namin. Syempre, instead of for free, di ba? Tapos yung pala, hindi tayo nagkakasundo. Kaya yun, parang, since then, parang, lone wolf na lang ako whenever I shoot videos. For whatever purpose, talaga solo flight na lang ako. Yun, parang wala lang. Kaya, whenever JC was mentioning na he's working with his girlfriend, ganun, and ikaw, may crew ka, parang sabi ko, anak ng toka, nakakaingit tong mga to, ha. Wala, yun lang yung pinaka-worst experience ko, bale.
Actually, may phobia rin ako ng ganyan just to add. If close friend or like yan, if I'm working with my girlfriend or anyone na kilala ko, like parang sabi ni Sir RJ na you have to have good communications with your crew, 'di ba? So most likely kasi yung mga naka-collaborate mo would eventually become close friends. So if pag may phobia rin kasi ako when it comes to, especially pag mas pro kaysa sa akin, or mas pro talaga kasi talagang ano pa ako, beginner. So may phobia ako na either I would ruin his thought process or he would ruin my thought process. Yung ganong phobia na kahit sabihin natin pro siya, he has or she has something na different from what I'm thinking or yung thought process. So may phobia na ganun eh. Pero I think ang pinaka natutunan ko is just go with the flow if that's the case. Parang kasi it would give you more reasons to be, or it would give you more reasons na not to continue with it eh. Na if it continues to be your parang yun yung nagiging result palagi na baka nasa stress ka kasi nga ayaw mo ng kasama, parang it would really, siguro ngayon hindi pa ganun ka detrimental, pero pagtagal kasi it would shape you in a way na ayaw mo na ng kasama palagi, or you'd have a different experience from the people na who are open to other suggestions or open to other people. Kasi before naging ganun ako eh, parang I'd want to work alone. I'd want to produce music or videos alone kasi it's my thought eh. I don't want you to interfere with with whatever I'm thinking. Pero eventually kasi I've been collaborating yan with my girlfriend, tapos with I'm also kasi a music producer, so yung mga small music or rock covers lang, I do it with my office mates or I do it with my friends. So magandang experience siya eh. Even though if it's not the same view as yours, magandang experience eh kasi it would tell you what you like more other than what you really love, and what you hate na siguro may embrace mo rin. Parang gano'n. So it gives you that experience, good or bad. So I get yung kay Hero na nagkakaroon ka ng phobia na parang ayoko masira yung mood ko, or ayoko masira yung thought process ko the next time I engage ng same na project or same na film, gano'n.
And nakaka-effect din sa production, like, kasi kung may crew kayo, yung nakakababa ng moral ng crew nyo din, if ano, kaya it's very important nga, like, good relation, good vibes lahat.
Exactly.
Kasi yung toxicity no, nakaka-affect sa lahat. Okay, sa akin naman, I have two. I'll just share one quick one. I think one was an experience that I was still doing like wedding videography a few years ago. I think it was my second wedding siguro. And then we missed the kiss. Autofocus yung shot, yung kuha sa kiss. Tatlong cameramen and walang nakuha na isa na takloban yata ng tao. Sa akin naman na autofocus. Buti na lang isang guest na mahilig mag videography at nakakuha siya ng maayos na nakuha namin yung footage niya. So yung naligtas yung edit naman doon. And then during a film production, I think there's one nung gumawa kami ng zombie film sa Laguna, sa Gubat. So, walang saksakan, walang PowerPoints, walang and then nasa araw kami. And then I was shooting using a smartphone. It was a smartphone shot film production. All out kami sa production, like effects, everything. Pero yung sa camera namin, we use the smartphone. And yung drawbacks din pala ng mga smartphone is, yes, one, maubos yung battery, and two, nag-overheat. Then, so sa tapat ng araw, yeah, the phone shut down and you couldn't even like recharge power bank, whatever. So, ang hirap pag nasa location shoot ka, hinahabol mo yung araw, yung timing, yung direction ng araw, and then medyo malaki yung production namin, maraming extras, medyo maraming crew than usual. So, lahat yun, it's true yung sinasabi na time is money. So, nag-extend yung shoot, naka 6 weeks yung shoot when it should have been like 2 weeks or 4 weeks lang kasi maraming mga iba pang problema, but like na-bloat yung budget. I think nakaabot kami, I don't know if it was 20,000, 30,000 yung budget. And a lot of it kasi it's just to feed your actors. Yung sa catering, sa pagkain lang, yung ganun. So because of that, I guess yung lack of foresight in terms of power, yung hindi fully charged, wala kang dalang enough power banks, or yung sa araw, wala kang enough parang dapat siguro may mga, may payong, may mga portable fan or something to cool our device. And yun na-extend, sobrang shoot na gumastos pa kaming extra just to accommodate that. So, every planning talaga is very, pre-production. Oh, pag maayos ang pre-production, hindi ka mag-over ng budget ng promote. Yun lang.
Actually, gusto ko makita yung short film mo na zombie.
Ako nga
Is it
rin, I'll
available
check it
on
later.
your YouTube
Yeah,
channel?
it's there. It's on my YouTube. Still
Hanapin
that.
ko.
Ready to.
Mag-binge watch ako sa
By the way,
sa
both of you
channel.
guys have your own YouTube channels. What is your take on behind the scenes? Like for RJ, are all of your short films meron kang behind the scenes version sa YouTube channel mo?
Hindi lahat, pero in the process, in the mix, meron na ako na-record na, I just have to like edit it, put it together. Right? Some of the recent ones meron behind the scenes. But personally, yeah, gusto ko. I want people to, I want them to be in the process. Gusto ko, I want like the audience to really see what went behind it and learn from it too. Mga mistakes namin sa production. I think maraming makaka-learn kahit sa mga palpak natin sa paggawa.
Kasi with JC, he recently has started this channel. Puro POVs nung mga entries niya on his Instagram. Kami as the audience, we are parang kahit paano tagged along with his POV videos na nasa YouTube niya, which is nice, di ba? So it's not just the parang finished product na nakikita namin on Instagram, but also we get to be with him, we get to join him on his photo walks, which is nakakatuwa na rin, di ba? So whether film,
Naka-fascinate talaga eh.
oo, nakaka-fascinate talaga.
Especially
POV mismo, yeah. It's very,
Yeah.
Especially
if you're going to a place na where a lot of people want to go, at least kasi you're giving them a scout video na parang okay, there's this restaurant pala dito, let's go there. Diba parang yung POV photography kasi will not only help you help you with your photography or with your skills. It helps a lot of people rin to scout within yung area na pinag-shoot mo eh. Like for example, I'm usually looking for local na POV photographers eh. Kasi most of them are shooting in Makati, Manila, QC, which is not really within my area. Kasi taga-south ako eh, taga Las Piñas. So, with those POV photography videos, it helps me to see what the area really looks like now. Yung ganon, yung parang if you want to shoot in an area na malayo sa at least they would give you guides or they would give you something to look, and if you're planning to do also the same na ibang routes, at least alam mo na. Plus also the audience would want to see na okay, I want to see how this guy is routing or how easy is he going around and how does he shoot. So it's kind of like a behind the scenes, pero kasi it's kasi pag behind the scenes kasi you see most of the bloopers, most of the yung mga ganun eh. Kasi pag POV, you'd want to see yung thought process.
Yeah.
Okay, unfortunately, JC, lagi natin pinapromise sa sarili natin na we won't be doing overtimes. But and again, this is our fifth attempt. And this is our fifth time din na nag-fail tayo.
Overtime.
At lagpas na overtime na naman tayo. Can we ask RJ for his final words, and he can promote all of his works actually, social media platforms, his upcoming projects and whatnot.
Nice. Basta, I mean, for last words sa mga aspiring storytellers and filmmakers out there, there really is a revolution ngayon. Like talagang more than ever talaga, you can really seize the opportunity to make your films now. Like there's no barrier ngayon na like, oh, I can't, or it's too expensive, or I don't have all the gear, I don't have all the skills. Lahat ng skills nandun, tinuturo na for free on YouTube or in ebooks, and then your gear, like the best tool, best camera you have is the one that you have in your pocket. Like right now it's very, especially if you master it, like iba lang yung you got your smartphone and you shoot lang and hawak-hawak. But if you can really learn how to like master it and like use the manual settings, for example, you could really create talagang amazing visual stories and short films that it doesn't have to be the final product. I mean, the goal is not to be a smartphone filmmaker per se or ganun, but that can be your stepping stone to your future dream as a professional filmmaker, professional videographer, or whatever professional field, because you're doing that in your own time, you're doing it as a passion, you're building to your future, you're building to your dream. Kaya wag natin aksaya yung the opportunity that we have now, even the timing. I mean, even the pandemic, it's a blessing in disguise for a lot of people because they got to hone their skills. So really, there's no time better than now to talagang go out there and make your stories and shoot, film, edit, write your stories, put it together, and when if it's a bad job, do it again and then again, wash, rinse, repeat, and you'll only get better and better. And next thing you know it, you're living your dream now. Because you will not get there without, you know, we're in this kind of instant gratification generation or likes and mga ganun, like Instagram and all that. But we have to make those steps to get there to achieve our dreams. And right now it's more like it's really easy and accessible to do that ngayon. If you want to be a filmmaker, videographer, cinematographer, photographer, whatever field, the creative field, the barrier is so low and nothing is stopping you ngayon to do it. And so go out there, just do, create. Now, don't be held down that, oh, hindi ako magaling, or I don't have the money, the budget, I don't have the gear, I don't have the skills. Learn as you go, buy as you go, invest as you go. Your last few episodes, you're talking about like SAG and gear lust and stuff, but you know, start with what you have and unti-unti build up your gear, build up your storytelling knowledge. And yeah, nothing is overnight, but if you do, uh, there's that philosophy na Atomic Habits. There's a book called Atomic Habits where, you don't have to change your behavior overnight. But if you change 1% every day, 1% every day, then every day becomes 2%, 4%, 8, 64, then you improve exponentially greater. Kaya unti-unti, araw-araw, shoot ka, direct ka, sulat ka, and then next thing you know it, iipon yan, and then you'll have all the skills necessary to really achieve and fulfill your dreams. And then yeah, you can check me out on YouTube. You can see some of my works behind the scenes, and then just some upcoming event. I think coming plug. I just have I'll be speaking at a conference, Mobile Innovation Congress, this November 14th, and it's being hosted by my alma mater actually in Melbourne, Australia. But it's a congress about using mobile technology, and my topic that I'll be talking about there is on using mobile filmmaking to share stories about mental health and how we can empower people who have no voice to talk about their experiences, especially in the mental health sphere. But yeah, check out my YouTube and Instagram. That's all there. Ronald James Baculo or RJ Baculo. You can just Google that or.
Hey, JC, ano?
All right. So unfortunately, we've been overtime. Pero thank you. Thank you so much, Sir RJ. It's really a humbling experience na we get to feature a lot of cinematographers, videographers, and photographers na have been in the industry. And hopefully this will help not just me and Hero in our skill set or in our thought process, pati rin yung mga aspiring videographers and other people that are willing to dive in. So yeah, so I guess this is the end of our episode. Again, thank you. This is JC, aka RJ Snaps.
This Hero from Shoot with Hero. Thank you and have a great weekend, guys. Maraming salamat
Have a great
and
weekend.
bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.